Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Mic with Hunter Withrow is underway on the Wednesday edition. Glad you're with us across OutKick, which includes our YouTube channel right now, streaming live. Search out OutKick. Hit subscribe. You'll be able to join Chad in the chat throughout today's show live. Catch all the shows on demand from the OutKick channel as well as OutKick.com. And if you're listening to this great radio partner, we say thank you. Clayton Sayfie will join us coming up in about 20 minutes. He's with On 3 through the Wolverine, covering all things Michigan athletics. Plenty to hit on from the football and basketball perspective, from Jim Harbaugh to Juwan Howard. We'll cover it coming up in about 20. Plus, AJ Pierzynski, Fox's MLB analyst, will join us in hour number 2, and our fearless leader, Clay Travis, as well, each and every Wednesday. Check it after.
Look at us getting some Fox Sports guests on the show. Love it. We know it's going to be a good day when that happens. When Fox Sports says yes, we are ready to rock and roll.
Rock it.
Hutton, I'm ready to bang some damn hats today. This is going to be fun. We are one day away from our show's official start of the weekend, which is Thursday. So let's roll into the weekend the right way.
That's right.
We're getting ready for our weekend on this Wednesday.
Your lovely daughter, Evie, had her acting debut last night. And while you are now at the thespian family, another actor, at least he portrays himself to be one, is, well, Draymond Green, who is ejected yet again in the NBA. And the association needs to do more than a 5-game suspension now after the flailing that went on.
So Draymond Green, the biggest problem with him is not just the repeat offender status and a guy who continues to try to convince people that he's not meaning to do these things.
Right.
Which is the most ridiculous claim when you are as graceful of a professional athlete as him. If you think that he was not trying to hit him in the face last night, I can't help you. That was not an accident. That was not a mistake. If you've watched sports long enough, if you ever played sports, you know what is intentional and what is unintentional. And what happened last night with Draymond Green and the slap to the face was absolutely intentional. Here is the problem with Draymond Green and what the NBA has to assess and has to label him as. Not only as a repeat offender, as a non-remorseful repeat offender. The character Red, played by Morgan Freeman in Shawshank Redemption, for years and years he'd come up for parole. And every time he came up for parole, if you remember the movie, he'd say, I've seen the error of my way. If I could go back to that 18-year-old kid, I would tell him not to commit that awful crime. I've been in here long enough. I am reformed. I'm ready to go. And every time the parole board stamped him denied, denied, denied. And finally, in the end of the movie, I don't want to spoil this for anyone, he said, I'm too damn old and I've been doing this too long, so you go ahead and stamp your little book, Sonny. I don't care what you say, because I'm probably going to end up dying here at this point. And what happened? Approved. And he was put out on parole at that point. Draymond Green is the opposite of that character. He starts with the denial. He starts with not caring. He starts with a press conference that says, you guys know I don't like to apologize for things I didn't intend to do, so I'm not sorry for that, but I am sorry to Jusuf for what I think was unintentional because I hit him in the face. Give me a break, dude. Show some remorse. If he's not worthy of a 25-plus game suspension as a repeat offender, I don't know who would be in the NBA.
I don't know if it's not worthy of a suspension like that with the chokehold. With Gobert, I don't know what this suspension brings now. If they're factoring in previous instances where you can go back to the playoffs, of course, it all ties back in with Jordan Poole from last season in the preseason. You've got all of these accounts on record, but yet he goes to the podium last night and says this.
He was pulling my hip, and I was swinging away to sell the call. Made contact with him. As you know, I'm not one to apologize for things I meant to do, but I do apologize to you, sir, because I didn't intend to hit him. I sell calls with my arms. I don't fall or to sell a call. I'm not a flopper. So I was just selling the call because he was grabbing me and pulling my hip back. So I spun away, and unfortunately, I hit him. And so, like I said, I apologize to Jusuf because I didn't intend to hit him.
He's not a flopper, Chad. This is the 180 of that. The other extreme, flailing like he's a Monday Night Raw for WWE. I'll give him credit. He has the ability to, swing his arms and make it seem so nonchalant that no other player in the NBA currently could pull this off if it's so unintentional. It is intentional, and he does it with more than his arms. He's stepping on players. He's putting players in a chokehold. This is going on and on to the point where he's mocking those that are making the decision whether or not to suspend him for longer than 5 games, which clearly didn't play a factor in any thought in his mind to stop doing what he's doing.
Yeah, Jusuf Nurkic got popped in the face by an intentional slap, an open hand swat to his face. That is point blank. The video shows that. He can spin this BS about I didn't intend to do it and I sell calls. What was it he said? I sell calls. I'm trying to get calls with and I fling my arms. Dude, that's flopping. It's flopping by a different name. You are a flop artist. You can flop standing up. We see it all over basketball, guys who are dribbling and do the wild flopping motion while they're dribbling to try to get a call. Yes, it's part of the game in many ways, but you are an extreme flop artist. It just happens to be that while you're flopping, you find ways to inflict pain and be cheap against the guy that fouled you. And that's what he did last night. He got a little shove from behind, basketball move, starting to go post up, and the guy gave him a little body, and then he decided to slap him in the face. And now he's going to act like he didn't do it. And Steve Kerr is fed up with this stuff. Steve Kerr post-game is saying,
Gotta be.
We need Draymond. We've told him that. And he continues. He gets right back from suspension. This team is, 10-13 now? They're struggling mightily. They get the guy back they need from suspension, and pretty quickly goes back out there and smacks another dude in the face, and he's going to get suspended for it. I just hope it's for a lot of games, because the 5-game suspension, the short-term stuff is not getting through to him. And the fact that he's not owning it tells me that you've got a real problem on your hand, Adam Silver, and you've got to act and do something more extreme than just 5 games. Hutton, I think this is the time where they will act in a bigger way.
Well, and also keep in mind, there's not really a chance that he's going to get that inbounds pass anyway, where he's fighting for position. Yeah, I'm with you. And this goes, I believe Joe Dumars is over the discipline and handing down the suspension or the length of time missed. And couldn't the Warriors do this too if they wanted to? If Steve Kerr is fed up with it?
Oh, yeah.
And if it's so awful, I mean, he's had 19 career ejections. He's number 2 in the NBA all time. If he's so fed up, why'd you bring him back? Why'd you choose to bring him back over?
Oh, but because they need him. I mean, he said it. They need him. Here would be my question about that.
He's the burden that you want on your team and not off your team.
Well, and the point from Steve Kerr is we need you playing with an edge. We don't need you smacking guys in the face for no good reason and putting yourself in jeopardy of a long suspension again. Like, that stuff has to go away. We want you playing with an edge. Here would be my question. Is Draymond Green any good if he's not doing this? Because it seems to me that this is who he is at this point. He's a cheap shot artist. And that is productive for Golden State. Clearly, he's better when he is hitting people below the belt, when he's kicking guys, when he's putting someone in a chokehold, when he's open hand, pie face smacking someone for no reason. So is he going to be a good player if he stops doing this? I don't know. There are certain guys that just need to play like this. If so, probably not a place for him in the league right now, because he is a cheap shot artist, but he's a cheap shot artist that, as Steve Kerr said, the Warriors need.
Well, and he's better than just a role player. That's the other key to this. I think of in his description, listening to Draymond there, he's like, yeah, I'm not one to flop. He's not looking to embellish something that has happened to him. I think of Rodman in that same manner, and the things that the teams that he was a part of. Shaquille O'Neal called him the worst teammate he's ever had because of the length of areas and what you had to do in order to allow him to be Dennis Rodman and to keep the locker room stable at the same time. It's been documented what Phil Jackson did on behalf of just letting Dennis Rodman clear his head with Carmen Electra, headed out on a escapade in the middle of the season. He was ejected 12 times in his career. And
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, different league then, too, in terms of what you could get away with.
Well, Rasheed Wallace leads the league, though. That was just after the Rodman era, and they overlapped. So they've adjusted this to where now a flagrant 2 or 2 flagrant 1s is an automatic ejection. But I mean, he's that version of this NBA era.
But see, in that NBA era, if he did stuff like that, it would lead to a fight. And no one in today's NBA is fighting.
I agree.
So there's no, for lack of a better term, prison justice that's put out there. And that is guys taking it in their own hands, that if you do something, much like in baseball, you start playing a little game of beanball when something goes awry, right? I don't see that in today's NBA. So you kind of got a guy out there who's the lone assaulter, and then no one's going after him and no one's doing anything. In 1988, when the Bad Boys Pistons were playing, it would have launched into an all-out brawl with some of the stuff that was going on. So it's just a different game today. And my biggest issue is Draymond Green really challenging everyone's intelligence by claiming he doesn't mean to do some of the stuff that he does on the court, which we all know he's intending to do. He's intending to do it while making it look like he's falling down.
Yeah, he does.
But he knows exactly what he's doing.
But whenever he's called out, I think of Dylan Brooks last year with Memphis. Whenever he's called out and Dylan Brooks is saying things like, if you put him anywhere else, you're not going to know who Draymond is. He plays with heart, plays hard. He knows the ins and outs of their defense. I guess that's why they like him over there. And then whenever they matched up, guess who won that matchup? Guess who piped down? It wasn't Draymond Green. So when it is time to show up and play, the guy does. Now, what happened in that series went on to affect Draymond Green on the court. But you normally get the Draymond that you want back on your team. The problem is it's now becoming it's already a trend, but it's now occurring much faster in a much more frequent pace. And 5 games isn't that much of a suspension. And they said in the statement, Chad, going back to the Gobert choke, that they factored in previous altercations. And they still came up with 5 games. They've got to go more than that.
I think they got criticized for the 5 games on that one. And now that he's back in relatively short order, he's doing this.
Yeah.
This has got to be a lengthy suspension. I'm not just talking about doubling it. I think this is like 25-plus game suspension territory. You've got to send a message. I don't know if it's Joe Dumars or if Adam Silver's going to step in and do it himself, but whoever is levying the suspension, it's time to send a clear message because it's gotten ridiculous.
Well, they view it as a harsh suspension last time. I mean, again, Ja Morant was suspended 25 games. You know? That would be that. If they think that is the top of the line, they're not going to come close to that here. I'm not saying I'm not disagreeing with you. They need to be more.
What happened with Ja Morant was too often over the course of a short amount of time, no doubt. But this is it's not a lifetime ban, but it's lifetime penalties in the league for Draymond Green.
Well, but
it's now a culmination of all of them.
But what's happening with Draymond is on the court, though.
Yes.
Ja Morant off the court, suspended 25 games.
I have more of a problem with Draymond Green's lack of any bit of remorse. That's my issue if I'm the NBA more than anything else. It's that you've got to acknowledge a problem here.
Yeah.
That it's not just the circumstances of every game you're in, that crazy things are happening and you're the victim in all of this. No. It's you, dude. This happens over and over because of you, and you're the one doing it. It's not circumstances around you. And at some point, you got to get through to someone by saying, if this is happening over and over again around you, it's probably you. And it's definitely him in this instance.
Let me ask it this way. If someone stepped up and kicked his ass, what would happen? Does that help the situation at all?
It would help the situation with me.
Well,
but would it stop him from doing it?
When someone gets like spinning back fist to the side of the face or a chokehold, if you had someone else step up to his level and they treat him the way the Warriors had Dylan Brooks pipe down, to me, that sends the message of the alpha in the room. And right now, Draymond's on the court. He's the alpha on the court. He is.
I mean, look, I don't know that what he's doing is alpha moves, though. They're cheap shots.
Well, but he has no remorse.
I can't fault a guy for saying, I don't want to get suspended for 10 games or 5 games because I retaliate and throw a punch because he slaps me in the face, and now I've incited a brawl.
Well, I don't know if you would, though, because past instances led to a 5-game suspension for Draymond. So,
I mean, look,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
if there's someone on a bench out there that wants to go out there and provoke Draymond, and he does this one more time, and it's a hockey enforcer type situation, have at it.
No, I'm not saying the enforcer. The guy on the other end of the smack or the stomp.
Yeah, no. My point is, you want that to be an enforcer that's not much of a player on your team. If you want a guy out there who's big and willing to fight, he goes out there and roughs up Draymond, knowing he's going to eventually take a cheap shot at him. And when he does, you tee off.
Well,
if you want to take it in your own hands, that's what you do.
Right. But no one's doing that. No one's stepping up to that level. And Draymond's doing it time and time again.
I bet there's someone in the league that'd be willing to.
All you got to do is say that Draymond was the aggressor in my example here. You're retaliating. You're not stepping up and you're not bringing the heat upon tip-off. You're not dropping the gloves. I mean, you're either punched in the face or you're stepped on. And those guys just kind of, they speak to the media and that's it. Like
I'm willing
Rudy
to bet.
Gobert's talking about, well, if he could choke, if he actually was good at this, it would have been lights out. Like you got to be more than that in the response.
I'm willing to bet there's one huge Serbian somewhere that they could put in a game that would be willing to fight Draymond Green. We could end this once and for all.
There's a few.
Somewhere there's someone ready to fight.
Somewhere there's a boxing ring.
Likes to fight guys out there.
Yeah, at a pay-per-view. Talk Michigan next.
McGregor for president in Ireland. What do you think? The UFC star has floated the idea of running for office in the past, but now seems more serious than ever. This week, he took to X and explained why he would be a better alternative than the current competition if he runs. He looked at all of the candidates, and he said all of them with unbreakable ties to their individual parties' policies, regardless of what the public outside of their parties feel. Now, these parties govern themselves versus govern the people. Then you have me, 35, young, active, passionate, fresh skin in the game. I listen, I support, I adapt. I have no affiliation, bias, favoritism toward any party. They would genuinely be held to account regarding the current sway of public feeling. I'd even put it all to vote. There'd be votes every week to make sure. I can fund. It would not be me in power as president. It would be the people of Ireland. It would be me and you. Honestly, from these 2 posts alone, he's already said more to me. I'm not a resident of Ireland. I won't be voting in this election, obviously. But as someone who would be voting in any type of election, this is the type of things that I would want to hear from a candidate. So even though I won't be voting, he's got my attention. He's speaking very thoroughly, very eloquently. I respect everything that he's saying so far. Now, McGregor has also been outspoken in recent weeks about the politics in Ireland following the stabbing of 3 children in Dublin, in which the suspect was claimed to be a foreigner. Now, the UFC star had a lot to say about Ireland's immigration policy, which occurred simultaneously, you can remember, with the mass riotings, which allegedly landed McGregor in hot water with tabloids reporting that he's being investigated now for inciting and hate speech, which, of course, makes absolutely no sense and paints an even poorer light on the politics going on in Ireland currently. Now, according to a poll that he put up on X, it seems like people are really taking the prospect of his running for president seriously. He asked people that if he did run, would they vote for him? The answer overwhelmingly was yes. There was nearly 220,000 people voting at the end of when this poll closed. Connor came in with 88% of the vote. Honestly, again, I've already mentioned that I think he'd be a good candidate, but why not? He's already truly laid out such an eloquent case for himself. He is fresh skin in the game. He has no self-serving interests. As a former UFC champ in the lightweight and featherweight division, which, by the way, he was the first UFC fighter to ever hold 2 simultaneous titles, he knows what it means to fight and also to win. That is a mentality that not everybody has, that not everybody can have. And also, he's young. He's outspoken. He's not afraid to stand up for what he believes in. And he has been showing us sports fans that for years. He's a proud countryman. He already has made plenty of his own money. So there is no need to get involved in shady politics or corrupt deals. And actually, it reminds me of somebody else who used to be president, not in Ireland, but here in this country. Ringing any bells to any of you out there? In fact, I actually remember Conor McGregor calling Donald Trump the USA GOAT on MLK Day back in 2020. Listen, that says a lot about what he looks for in a politician, and I can imagine would hope to emulate one day if the occasion does indeed arise.
Sixth, the Peabody Air location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hot Mic with Hunt and Withrow rolls on across the OutKick network. Coming up in about 20 minutes, primary complaints. We're ready to go on that. Chad, we were discussing yesterday just the weird circumstances or the lack of really detail behind what's up with Juwan Howard and the altercation. You've got the heart surgery and much more. And that's on top of the fact that Michigan has no comment. They're dealing with everything that's been going on all football season. They're the number one team in the country, headed to the college football playoff.
I think a lot of people reacted to the Juwan Howard news like I did and said, so wait, he's recovering from open heart surgery and fought a strength coach in practice? And that's what we're talking about now? During his recovery? He's not been the head coach on the bench yet this season, but he's fighting the strength coach?
Clayton Sayfie joins us. We'll get some details here from the Wolverine at On 3. Clayton, thank you for the time, and hope things are well.
Yeah, things are all right. I feel like I only come on, though, when there's a controversy, but it seems like I come on a decent amount.
Hey, you got to stop having controversy at Ann Arbor. We won't do it anymore.
You're at the
every
center
week
of
it's something new. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, you might as well have, Draymond back in the state.
It's the new Tennessee. For years, the University of Tennessee would have something like this, something wild. It seemed like every 2 or 3 months, and we're broadcasting in Nashville, that we'd be dealing with. Now Ann Arbor, Michigan is the new Knoxville when it comes to wild stories of possible inappropriate activity.
So what detail behind the scenes have you been able to gather at the Wolverine with what went down and where we are with all this right now?
Yeah, and there was more that kind of came out today through reporting as well, on top of what we heard, but from The Athletic, and Jeff Goodman talked about it on his podcast as well. And it seems like, you're kind of able to put the pieces together a little bit. Jace Howard, Juwan's son, who's a redshirt junior guard on the team and has missed the entire season to this point, was kind of frustrated, about his status, wants to be cleared to play, and was kind of letting the trainer have it a little bit. John Sanderson, the strength coach, hears that, apparently was trying to break that up and basically said something like, hey, this is why the culture is the way it is right now. Juwan Howard hears that, comes in, and it seems like those two got chest to chest, and it was pretty heated, and they had to be separated. The most interesting part that came out today from The Athletic was the fact that it seems like John Sanderson filed a HR claim against Juwan Howard, and that's what they're going through right now. HR is reviewing this. It is unresolved as of this afternoon. So certainly to me, I mean, we can get into all the specifics about how none of this is a good situation, but probably the worst part of it to me is the fact that they couldn't handle a situation like this in program. And that probably speaks to a bigger issue about maybe what John Sanderson was sounding off about, potentially the culture. The last couple of years haven't gone the way they wanted them to, at least the start of this year, and last year missing the tournament for the first time in nearly a decade. So I think those frustrations seem to boil over. And then obviously, if you're the head coach of the program, it's one thing for players to get into it during a practice, or assistants maybe to have a heated discussion, but the head coach to act like that, from what's being reported and what we've heard, is obviously a pretty rough situation.
What should we make? And we were questioning this yesterday about the zero tolerance policy in the contract based on previous incidents and how this will be viewed. And we were pairing that with Ward Manuel giving a no comment.
Yeah, that's a good point to bring up too, because he obviously had the incident at Wisconsin where things got a little bit out of hand. 5-game suspension after he struck Joe Krabenhoff, the Wisconsin assistant. And at that point is when Ward Manuel, Michigan's AD, put into effect a zero tolerance policy against not against Juwan Howard, but for Juwan Howard. The fact that, again, it couldn't be handled in the program or even within the athletic department, they had to kind of go to the outside HR, speaks to the fact that, okay, there's this zero tolerance policy. They're reviewing it. I mean, if they find that Juwan had some sort of fault here, which it seems like he might, then I think things get a little bit dicey. So they play Saturday. You would think by then that we have some sort of resolution. But if you're Juwan Howard, you're probably in the back of your head thinking, I have this policy in effect. And, right now people are discussing what happened and trying to figure it out. And I mean, there's got to be some sort of doubt as to whether you're going to be on the bench Saturday or whether you're going to keep your job. So
was it Sanderson's decision to not be with the team over the weekend after this happened, or was this a program decision?
So we had heard after the game on Sunday at Iowa, and he hasn't been at practice either this week, but we had heard that it was a Sanderson decision. So not 100% sure on that, but that's kind of what we had heard.
And that tracks with the HR complaint.
For sure. So, he's the one that filed the complaint. Maybe it's like, hey, all right, take a step back. He also works with a couple other sports at Michigan. But certainly it's worth noting too, for people that don't follow Michigan that closely, John Sanderson has been here for a long time. He was a holdover from John Beilein's staff when Juwan Howard took over, and he has been one of the most key pieces of this program. Guys like Nick Stauskas and Karis LeVert and Kobe Buffkin, who was just the number 15 pick this past year, and many more have talked about the influence that he's had. A lot of them stuck around in the spring and summer and worked with him, and were able to kind of make these big leaps into NFL or NBA draft picks, so he's a big piece of this program, which is worth noting too.
So like Jim Harbaugh, you got another Michigan guy that's coaching the team. Are Michigan fans ready to go to war for Juwan Howard the way they are Jim Harbaugh right now? Or do they really care one way or the other about how this thing ends up with him being the coach or not?
Yeah, it's a good question too. I mean, to the extent that they are for Jim Harbaugh, no, and I don't even think it's close. I think a lot of people are kind of reading this, and from what I've seen from fans' reaction today and in the last couple of days, it's pretty split. And I think a lot of people understand that it's just not the situation you want. I mean, if they were winning on the floor right now, they're 5-5. They missed the tournament last year, as I mentioned. If they were winning, it would maybe be a different story. And certainly that's kind of the case with just about everything, right? If Michigan were number one in the country, I don't think you'd have as many Michigan versus everybody t-shirts and sweatshirts sold, but they're the number one team in the country in football. So you're seeing all that kind of support as they go through everything they're going through. But on the basketball side, when the winning's not there and you're having incidents like this, I think that's where you lose support, not only from the fans, but potentially internally, that could lead to some decisions being made that wouldn't work out in anybody's favor. I'll say nobody wants this to happen during the year, I don't think, but this is a key week as they look into it. And then nothing would surprise me after the season, if he's able to survive it this week.
TheWolverine.com is the site. We're joined by Clayton Sayfie. The discussion about the contract extension for Jim Harbaugh, and it's thrown out there that there would be a clause where he can't interview for an NFL job. What do you make of that? And given the fact that Harbaugh's got the number one team in the country, he can wait this out, and he's got the leverage moving forward where he won't have to sign that with that as a part of the contract and the extension, I would presume.
Yeah, so what's being reported is that he, there would be that clause in there where he can't look at the NFL or consider it this coming off season. Like you just said, I was about to say is, well, that clause could be in there, but he could sign it in February after he goes through that process again. So that seems like a possibility to me. I think there are also still some people that are optimistic that it could get done before the bowl game. Not willing to put timelines on Jim Harbaugh contract extensions anymore. I think every time I've come on the last several months, we've talked about it. And, every time it just feels like things change so quickly, and things do change when you're in the middle of an NCAA investigation too. But I don't think that's going to be that much of a hurdle anymore from the Michigan side. I think they're willing to give him that. And it sounds like he'll be the highest paid coach in the Big Ten. But if you're Jim Harbaugh and you may face a suspension next year, I think that's certainly something to consider when you may have other options in the NFL where you could coach game 1 through game 17 and possibly into the playoffs. But if you're at Michigan and you serve a 6-game suspension, for example, and I don't know that's what it's going to be, but it's kind of a number some people are throwing out. He served 6 this year. Then I think it's something you certainly have to take into account.
So just from the perspective of the NCAA investigation, 5-year extension is what is reported. From Michigan's stand and where they stand, are they viewing this as the NCAA as we know it is not going to be the same 5 years from now? Harbaugh would view it the same way if he signs this, and presumably maybe there's a different governing body looking over college football. Again, all hypotheticals, but it doesn't look like they're all too worried about what the NCAA might do instead of what the Big Ten has done.
Yeah, I think that's probably part of things. I think more than that, though, is that they feel like from what they've learned throughout this process, because, look, if you're a Michigan administrator too, and this comes up, you want to look into it and figure out what the facts are. You didn't know this was going on necessarily. It doesn't seem like, as many people as maybe originally thought did know this was going on with Connor Stallions and all this. So I think part of it is from what they've learned so far, they don't have any reason to, cut ties with Jim Harbaugh or say, hey, maybe we don't want to give him this big contract or whatever. So I think it's more about that than what the NCAA is going to be years from now. But I do think you have to consider that. And also it's worth noting too, that this has been long overdue. Like it was put on pause this past winter, almost a year ago now, because of the first NCAA investigation from what people are calling Burgergate.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call it. So it's kind of long overdue anyway. I mean, he's clearly got the best program in the Big Ten at this current moment, and is being paid just over $7 million in base salary compared to about 10 for Ryan Day and guys like that. So it's certainly something that has been in the works for a while. It's just had some speed bumps, and Michigan, it just does not work all that quickly either, having covered a few of these now. It seems like every year we're in the same spot.
Connor Stallions is a diehard Michigan Wolverines fan and dreams of being the coach. What's he doing right now? Where is he?
Well, he was spotted in Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship game as a diehard fan. I think just spectator of the team. He's been spotted in the background of some Dave Portnoy pizza reviews on Barstool as well. So I think he's probably doing that. I know he has a standing offer from Barstool. He probably has some offers from companies that are trying to make a documentary out of this one day, buy the rights to it or something like that. But as far as we know right now, I think he's laying a little bit low, although he was at a bar in Indianapolis, according to a social media post. So maybe not all that low, but I think he's kind of just laying low. He resigned. And, the funniest part, too, is the CMU screenshots on their sideline from the Michigan State game. NCAA has gone up there twice now, I think for almost a week at a time, to ask around CMU and investigate there, because he would have been there for CMU if he was there, from what we've heard. They haven't been able to figure out, this is how dumb the NCAA is. They haven't been able to figure out who the hell that was. That's my favorite part of this whole thing.
Well, and CMU, remember the athletic director said, we're going to launch an investigation into this, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. And that's the only time I've ever heard her voice. And she's not updated us on the investigation since. Are we ever going to get an update on the Central Michigan investigation into how he got
We
the
know
pass?
he's at the Big Ten championship, but we don't know if he is
can
confirmed.
someone just call Dave Portnoy and find out where he is and put him on the phone and figure it out?
It's so great. It's so great because I think we could be sitting here in 5 years and be like, who was that? Because if you're the CMU AD or president, or if you're Jim McElwain, you look at the photo, and Jim McElwain knows Connor Stallions, I'm pretty sure, because they were both at Michigan together for a year there. When
someone gave him Central Michigan gear to wear. I mean, so
you're claiming they actually are saying they don't know if it's him or not?
No, I'm saying you would know who it is,
right,
if it wasn't him.
Yeah,
but
correct.
It's all hypothetical because technically we can't figure out who it is. We don't know who that was.
Goodness gracious. I'm sure you saw the video of Michigan's reaction at their watch party when Alabama was the 4th team and not Florida State. Did you take that as disappointment from the Michigan team seeing Bama's name pop up as the opponent and not Florida State?
So I was in that room. My video was one of the ones that was kind of going viral a little bit. We were kind of in the corner, and some of the physical reactions, there was someone that stood up and kind of was like, what the hell? That was not somebody on the team. I don't know who that was. Some of the grumbling in there, I think, was a little bit more shock than anything because, of the Florida State situation. I didn't read as much. I mean, again, I was in that room. I did not read as much into that as the general public did. I don't really know how relevant it is. I also don't know that it has any effect one way or the other, because one of the things coming out of the TCU college football playoff game last year when they lost as a big favorite was that they were overconfident. So maybe that'll eliminate this. So maybe it'll actually be a positive. So I didn't take too much into that.
We got to be brief here, about 30 seconds. But Ohio State, all the talk all season was about, can they match the physicality of Michigan? Michigan is now a part of that discussion when it comes to the college football playoff, right? They've got a point to prove against Bama.
They do. And, it's Bama. I mean, we all know it may not be a vintage Bama team, but it's Nick Saban. He's 6-1 in semifinal games. It's Alabama. Watching their games and watching some of it here in the last couple of weeks, they're very physical at the line of scrimmage. They obviously have a ton of talent, and they have a quarterback that you got to contain. So you're absolutely right. They got a lot to prove here.
And 10 seconds, if they win, they want Washington or Texas?
I mean, I don't know if we'll get a reaction video or anything like that, but I would want Washington.
Okay.
I think they're just less of a complete team. Texas, to me, feels like an SEC very good team at the line of scrimmage. They got the quarterback and they got some weapons. So I would take Washington.
Clayton, thank you as always, man. Always really good with your time and with your knowledge and perspective on this.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.
Clayton Sayfie there. TheWolverine.com is where you can find Michigan coverage. Primary complaint next.
It depends on certain things, but I feel like now it's like a teammate. Like, that should be your partner, your teammate. Like, I'm not cleaning all the house all the time because I'm not your mom.
I agree. We're double income, no kids, so I really like a partnership, but I don't want to take the trash out.
Yeah.
So he's going to have to do that.
She takes the kids, I provide. Very traditional.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you think that more young people should do that?
Yes, very much so.
What is it about like a motherly quality that you like?
It's worked for thousands of years and it still works today.
I like being girly. I'm a girl and I like being girly, so I like traditional to girls.
Okay, well, according to the 7 Hermetic principles, one of those being the law of gender, gender manifests on all levels, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, all levels. Throughout the cosmos, there's gender. I don't know, it's a light. It's a book I read called The Supreme Way of Men or Women or something like that, and it spoke on how whether it's 2 women or 2 men, there still has to be someone who's masculine, someone who's feminine.
What would you spend on an engagement ring?
I'm not an engagement ring type of person. I'm like, but if she wanted a ring, I'd probably spend like 20 on it.
20 what?
1,000.
20,000. That's a lot of money.
Hey, and shit.
You don't get that lady a real answer.
No, for real. Ain't it how much you make though?
Price, I didn't really care. Size, absolutely. Had to be big enough it could be seen, and I didn't want like a basic ring. I wanted like eclectic, like vintage looking.
Okay.
So we did a custom order to do my ring.
I didn't have a preference. I just had a gold preference, and he kind of took it from there.
And you trusted him. Did he crush it?
Oh, yeah, he crushed it.
I've been spoiled thus far, and so I don't think I could ever go back from what I received last time.
Okay, so high standards. That's good. What are the standards?
Okay, it was 5 carats,
Okay.
and it was beautiful.
Mine was way too expensive,
What's way too expensive?
like $45,000.
You probably went with a real diamond.
Very much so, yeah.
Do you think that that's kind of a flex for the guy? Like, is the engagement ring, is the engagement ring only for the girl, or do you get to watch other people look at your girl's ring?
Solely for the girl. Solely for the girl.
You don't get any enjoyment.
Couldn't care less.
Red flags in dating, because obviously you found each other. Did you have any icks that you overlooked, or is he perfect?
No, he's perfect. We had a nice night out at the bar. Fought over a toy shark, and that's how it all got started.
What don't you like? Red flags.
Cheating, lying, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you looking for in a woman?
Honesty,
respect, and love for herself.
Some green flags are loyalty and trustworthy. Red flags are seeking attention from other women.
Jealousy, probably biggest thing, especially being around other girls all the time and having other girlfriends. That would be the number one thing, is jealousy.
Red flag is they're on their phone too much. Green flag is they're on their phone a lot with you.
Well, look for loyalty. That's it. I'm 24, so it's hard to come across that like when you're young. So that's really all I look for, really, honestly.
What were deal breakers?
If she was broke, I know that sounds crazy, but for real, if she was broke. Cause like it's like, yeah, like I don't want to take care of a motherfucker. Like I want to equal.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hot Mike with Hutton with her rolls on across the OutKick network.
Hutton, what did you think of the Michigan reaction video when Alabama popped up? I thought it was a little bit overblown. There was kind of a gasp from a few people, but it wasn't like guys were like standing up, throwing their lunch plates, angry.
I feel like that would be the same reaction to, let's see, if they had Texas or Washington.
It just surprise. It wasn't as much devastation as surprise.
I think there would be more fuel to the fire had Florida State popped up, because that's who they wanted.
If they started erupting in applause?
I mean, I don't mean this as a knock to Florida State, but if you're taking on the backup quarterback, and
you want the third string
you're
quarterback,
watching
backup.
Just how the defense is legit. They've played some good defenses, though, this year. Michigan. Yeah, you want the backup. You don't want Alabama, who's surging, who just beat Georgia. And for that matter, you don't, at that point, it could have been Georgia. And think about the offseason name on the wall and the offseason drills. They had a Georgia period in their offseason practices. That would be the matchup that would be awesome to see how they – I can't wait to see what happens in the trenches, though, because of – now it's the Ryan Day treatment in a way. It's like, hey, Michigan's always done this in the regular season. Now prove it in the college football playoff.
The good news is, if you're Michigan, you can still play the us against the world deal.
Yes.
Because even though Michigan is still currently favored in Vegas, I feel like most experts think it's going to be Texas and Alabama for the national title. So you can still play up the no one thinks we can win. Everybody thinks Bama's better. Everyone hates us. That has worked well for the Wolverines thus far. They're going to play that card one more time. And
I don't know if we're giving that Michigan team enough credit right now. Not Harbaugh, just the team. Because the reaction, that sparked they wanted another team. They didn't want Bama. I look at it as they're just straight business. And that's how they were whenever Harbaugh and all this mess went down. They use it to their advantage.
I don't think enough is being made about their strength of schedule, as opposed to they're only 8 spots better than Florida State, which everyone acts like was Liberty's schedule this year. It's not much difference between the two. I think the difference was they dominated, but they didn't play great against Maryland. They had some games like anyone does over the course of a season where you're not going to have it and you're going to win by less than you think you should win by in a game.
But that was really Ohio State, though.
That was Michigan. Ohio State had that also. You want to know how you win respect in college football as a big-time program? You go beat an SEC champ. And that's the chance they have now. No one's asking any questions about Michigan's schedule if they beat Bama. Plain and simple. So go beat an SEC team, something they have not done when they've been to the playoff, have not been able to do that. So you beat an SEC team, and you are in big boy football at that point. No one's going to question anything you've done. If they beat Florida State, if it's them there, and look, I think it should have been Florida State, But if it's Florida State, to the point of the surprise they had or excitement that it was, or disappointment that it was Bama, everyone's saying, well, you beat someone with a backup quarterback. So now go prove it against whoever it was in the national championship, right? So they got a chance to erase any doubt. Not that everyone should be doubting that on-field product of Michigan, but whatever doubt is left is erased with a win over Alabama.
I also get this vibe. There was not a lot of respect in front of Stetson Bennett until he had to go prove it in a back-to-back performance. And he did it after a bad performance in the SEC championship game, showed up and showed out in the college football playoff, right?
Yeah, he had to duel with C.J. Stroud, who's going to be NFL Rookie of the Year.
And the year prior, fans wanted him benched going into the college football playoff. I look at it's not the same, storyline with J.J. McCarthy, but there's this sentiment and perception that he's just really good running this offense and turning around and handing the football off to Blake Corum and company. I think we're going to see the J.J. McCarthy that's projected first round in the playoff. I do. They're going to have that with the defenses they'll be facing against Bama, Texas, or against Washington, where you've got to put up some points.
I was looking at Matt Miller's first round projection for the draft.
What do you have?
J.J. McCarthy, 7th overall to the Raiders.
We had the discussion about the third quarterback selected. We don't know the coach there, but the coach that's been mentioned there.
He had Jaden Daniels 4th.
But think about who's going to be coaching the Raiders, hypothetically. Harbaugh.
Yeah.
Again.
That'd make an easy decision.
Yeah, exactly. Report from Jeremy Fowler, who says that barring a late season collapse, the Falcons are not expected to fire Arthur Smith, that they'll keep him for another year. Late season collapse would mean they have the Panthers, followed by the Falcons, followed by the Colts, then the Bears, then the Saints. Barring losing out to these teams, Arthur Smith is back.
What does collapse mean? If they lose 3 or 4, is that a collapse to those teams? If they lose all of them, it's definitely a collapse. That is an odd report. I think you need to get to the point, if you're going to be an anonymous source on something, you need to get to the point of he's coming back next year no matter what, based on what we've seen, other than, hey, there's still 4 games left. Barring collapse, he's coming back. Because when that report's out there, you can't put that genie back in the bottle and not have everyone thinking about the math of the games that are left and what constitutes collapse. Because I would say 3 out of 4 is a collapse with that remaining schedule. 4 out of 4, absolute collapse. So what does it take to get him fired now? You see what I'm saying? Wait till you beat the Panthers, and then you come out and you say, hey, Jeremy, I got a scoop for you. He ain't getting fired. He's coming back.
I wonder if that means Ritter. Again, things need to shake up a little bit there at the quarterback spot especially. The CEO is out at Sports Illustrated with the publisher, the Arena Group, with all the AI writing and fake bios and fake profiles and people that are writing stories that they say that didn't happen, but that they're no longer practicing or trying out versions of stories that are written by AI. The CEO, Ross Levinson, is out. And this shows you if there are other media outlets, if there are other distributors that are doing this, while they're going to continue to test these things, Chad, you better not have the test fail. And try to fool the audience, have it fail, and then have the perception that you're straight lying to the viewers, the audience, the readers that are looking for trustworthy information in their news.
Topic for another day and a football offseason topic. What happens when human writers become forms of AI? Because I think that's what's starting to happen now too. I feel like there are writers that are programmed to only say one thing a certain way and write it a certain way using the same adjectives. And I think that the algorithm that's in place in social media and people being too online has caused humans to almost act and replicate what AI would do. And I'm trying to run from that with a lot of things that I read. And I want original voices and original thought in what I'm seeing. And I think that we're getting into an era where human writers and content makers are becoming a human form of AI. That's a lot. That's heavy. I know I didn't mean to load that on everyone right now, but we'll lay that out in a long-form discussion at some point, because I fear that's what's happening.
The writers
too.
actually have someone write for them, AI write for them as well.
No,
I'm saying they could do that right now.
I'm saying brain-wise, I'll explain it. I think I explained it pretty well. I'll explain it further another time. I think people are being trained by social media and what they read to write the same thing over and over again about the topics.
Yes.
It's not even groupthink. It's being too online. I think you read certain stuff because of your algorithm online, and then you regurgitate it in the same way over and over and over and over again. Look at those that use the same adjectives to describe every piece of media content out there. You'll see what I'm talking about.
So it's SEO. They're just writing to SEO to where they get the likes, like the search engine optimization.
I think, I don't know if it's as much that as their brain is becoming SEO. Like they're just now, that's all they think in that way. They're not thinking, oh, if I write this word, this is what's going to happen. I think it's something even worse than that.
But Dave, you're saying like if you're saying they're using certain words so they pop up in search engines and in other algorithms.
Yes, it's a common
to get more
reoccurrence now. Correct.
Turning into AI, Chad, to get clicks.
Well, whatever it is, it's sinister. So let's get to primary complaint.
Let's do it.
It's time to air our top grievance of the week.
You can complain all you want.
My job is so unfulfilling. Don't run away from your feelings.
It's time for Hot Mike's primary complaint.
Guys, my primary complaint this week, there was a time when Uber, if you were not at your pinpoint, the pickup location, they were pissed off at you, right? You're not. We're here where you said to pick you up. Where are you? Now they're not even going to the pinpoint where I'm standing. They expect for anyone to walk down the street, take a left, and then go up next to the Starbucks where they're currently just sitting and chilling in a spot, instead of actually circling around and picking you up at the pinpoint location, which is what Uber suggested. I'm paying you. It's not the other way around. It's my primary complaint.
Come to me. I'm not going to go to you. You come to me because I'm the one paying.
I walk to the spot, and I'm sharing the location. You can see where I am. Pick me up at that spot.
They pretend they can't see.
No, now they message. Now they message, I have arrived. And I'm like, no, you haven't, because I'm standing at the arrival position.
Yeah, that's a problem. My primary complaint also involves transactions. Was in a store today doing some Christmas shopping. It's one that I don't frequent. And, I mean, I'm getting asked every question just to be able to swipe my credit card to pay. What's my email address? What's my phone number? What's my zip code? And finally, I'm asking, do I have to give you all this? Well, no, but you're going to be signed up for rewards. No. Can I just swipe my card? I've got the nice thing where I can just swipe it over this thing right now and pay you. Can we please get to that process quicker than me answering 20 questions? That is my holiday season primary complaint.
Going back to one Hutton had earlier, this fall, I believe it was about the tips and how you have to select for the tips now.
Right.
The other day, I was at a place to where I physically had to type in 0 for the tip. It had automatically calculated the tip on at 25%. And if I didn't change that, it was going to go ahead and just automatically tip. So I was just wanting to follow up on that. But my primary complaint today has nothing to do with tipping. It actually just has to do with the fact that headlights are too bright now. I drive a newer vehicle, and I'm probably part of the problem where I know my headlights are too bright on my Camry, part of the Cam fam. But I know for like trucks that are driving behind me, like I have to move my head and weave as I'm just driving because the LED lights are shining so bright, hitting the mirrors, that it's just blinding me to where I can't even see where I'm going at night. And it's getting to the point, I've heard other people have the same problem. And I mean, can we go back? Was it just the yellow lights that maybe didn't see 200 yards ahead, but it was enough to where I wasn't blinded when I was driving on the other side of the road?
Yeah, some of these new headlights or the lamps are just, it looks like they have their high beams on. They don't. Meanwhile, he's mentioning the Camry. I'm thinking, I drive a Dodge Stratus.
Yes.
The SNL skit with
It's
Will
great.
Ferrell.
The Cam Fam also is really good. Do you guys wave at each other like the owners of Jeep Wranglers?
No, I used to do
when
that
you see
for
another
people.
Camry, do you wave?
I did do that whenever I was driving my Chevy Blazer, though.
I
But
drove
that's just a special brotherhood.
My first vehicle was a Jeep Cherokee, which was older, but I tried to do that with other Jeep Cherokees, just like the Jeep Wrangler family could wave at each other. It did not take off.
Now Chad does
it
it
did
with-
not take off.
Hey,
no
here-
one would do it back. It was
Here comes a
very
fellow
sad.
pickup man.
But by the way, being a noted truck guy now,
Yeah,
as I
a
am, I
trucker.
always feel like I'm blinding people. I'm so high up, Hutton, that those lights are shining right on them.
Yep.
I feel bad like I'm blinding everyone that's coming at me. Did I say I felt bad? I don't, because you never feel
You don't.
bad driving a truck.
You don't.
Only truck people understand.
You are the Draymond Green of truck drivers.
I am. I will slap another truck driver or
Pick up.
especially a Camry driver
Yeah.
in the face and then pretend it was an accident, just like Draymond Green. That's how I roll.
And you'll get away with it.
Noted truck guy here. Big truck
The
guy.
Camry guy's not going to.
Huge truck guy. That's me.
He's not going to test you. AJ Pierzynski joins us next. We'll talk Ohtani contract.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader.
I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life.
ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I made the call to end the Me Too movement, and today I'm going to continue making that case. And that's just a way to further taunt these women, to make them feel less than, to make them realize that this has just become a big joke. Deion Sanders is the Donald Trump of football.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, a bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, hour number 2 is here. Hot Mike with Hutton Withrow across the OutKick network.
We are rolling right along, Hutton.
Wednesday edition coming up in 20 minutes. Clay Travis will join us. Soon to be joined by AJ Pierzynski, Fox Sports Major League Baseball analyst. Does a great job. Looking forward to it. Chad, we've got a lot more to discuss across college, NFL, and beyond. Thursday night football, Chargers and Raiders. 3 Saturday games, though, this week.
Also, college football-wise, Hutton, do you want to put an estimate on how many bowl games will be played this Saturday?
I think there's 5. Is there
7? 7 college football games. This is like Championship Saturday all over again in terms of number of games. 7 bowl games. I registered my family for a bowl selection pool online today, and I've had to remind the family, hey, get your picks in before Saturday morning, because starting at 10 a.m. Central Time, they're going to have games kick off, and there's going to be 7 games.
Yeah, we need to get our picks in later today.
We need to make that happen.
That's right. The Dodgers made it happen. Ohtani officially out in L.A. AJ Pierzynski joins us from Fox. And AJ, thank you for the time, man. Hope things are well.
Everything's great. How about y'all?
Yeah, man, doing great. So when you see the $700 million figure and the fact that the money is deferred, what are you anticipating for future contracts, given the fact that Ohtani and the Dodgers are doing this down the road, and what it may do for other players, clubs, and the fact that free agents now can look at Ohtani as a reason why they can now join?
Well, I think what Ohtani did was great. I think he got every dime he could. And I think the way he handled it, because listen, everyone's like, oh, all the teams are going to do this, right? No, they're not, because not a lot of teams are willing to do this. And 2, at some point, this bill comes due, right? So you have to owe him still. You still owe him the $68 million that he deferred. So you still have to pay it. But there's also only one Shohei Ohtani. So a lot of guys take deferred money, but nobody makes what, 20, 30, 40. They're talking about $50 million off the books in endorsements. Nobody else has that kind of power. So this is a unique contract, a unique situation. And I think, honestly, I don't know that we'll ever see it again unless another Ohtani comes along. And this is not cheating by the Dodgers. This is not cheating by Ohtani. What it is smart, because not only does he save, he might lose some money on the front end, but he makes all that money up on the back end. And you know what else he does? He can save taxes, because he can live wherever he wants when he gets all the big checks coming in from the Dodgers. So he saves huge tax money.
It's certainly within the rules, and it's very smart of the Dodgers, Ohtani, everyone involved with the Dodgers. My question, AJ, would be this. Let's say the Dodgers win 3 or 4 World Series in the next 10 years, having implemented this plan. Does this cause owners around the league to look into this? Not look into it like an investigation of the Dodgers, but to try to change their way of thinking about this rule of deferring money in a contract? Do other teams get upset by it? Or do you think it's just business as usual, and when the next collective bargaining agreement comes around, it's going to be the same thing and the same opportunity for everyone?
Well, Bobby Bonilla is still collecting checks, right, from the Mets every, July 1st, Bobby Bonilla Day? Mm-hmm. So this has been going on forever, just not to this magnitude. Again, because there's never been Shohei Ohtani. I think Mookie Betts, he's deferring, $11 million or something, like a year, same thing. Freddie Freeman on the Dodgers defers money. Max Scherzer. I mean, Ken Griffey Jr. for a while was still the highest paid Red. For years after he's been gone. So this has been happening for years, and it's a way to save money up front. But you eventually have to pay for it, but it doesn't count against the luxury tax once you start paying it. So listen, the Dodgers are Guggenheim behind them, right? They have, I don't know how many billions, hundreds of billions. Guess what? They're not going broke anytime soon. So $68 million to them is like, oh, here's a little, check for $68 million. You're not playing anymore, Shohei. We won our 3 World Series. As far as other teams, listen, Shohei offered this contract to every other team. We heard the Giants GM come out and say, oh, Shohei offered this, but he picked LA. Other teams would have been dumb not to take this, because you can make the money up front off of his endorsements, meaning off of what he brings in off the field from Japan and from other outlets. And LA was a place he wanted to be, obviously, but I don't see the rules changing, because he offered this 29 other teams, and the Dodgers said, yeah, we'll do it. The Giants said, we'll do it. He just liked LA better than San Francisco. So that maybe more is on Shohei. But listen, if a team came to me and said, hey, we'll give you 10 years, 100. Oh, you have to defer 90 of it until, 10 years from now. so what? I'm still getting 100. I'm just going to have to, be a little smarter until it comes in.
Was it Dodgers all the way, ultimately?
Yes, I think so. I mean, Toronto got involved a little bit, and people are like, oh, he used Toronto. Toronto's a great place and a good organization. They tried. I give them credit. But you know what? It seemed like, man, we've been talking about this for like 2 years now. Ohtani's going to the Dodgers. The Dodgers saved up all their money last year. It seemed like a foregone conclusion.
You talked about the marketing money that Ohtani's going to generate for the Dodgers, the money he generated for the Angels. I know clubs are always looking for the best players all over the world, but we've seen other Japanese stars now and some about to come to Major League Baseball that they're getting involved in bidding wars across the sport for those guys. As the uncertainty of television in local markets and regional sports networks and all that stuff is up in the air right now about where all that is going, AJ, do you see other teams looking hard at international players like a Japanese player, knowing if you get the right one and get a star, that it's going to open up revenue opportunities for television internationally and other ways you can make money as a club?
Well, I think you look at San Francisco, they just signed Lee, right? From Korea. He's going to bring in money from Korea because he was a star over there. You look at Yamamoto, who the Dodgers are linked to also. He's another guy that can bring in money. Now, listen, nobody's on Shohei's level, but we first saw this with Ichiro when he went to Seattle, when he came over. Then the Yankees went and got Hideki Matsui, right? Godzilla. And he brought in revenue. And I remember you'd go into Yankee Stadium and there was Japanese signs and everything all over the outfield. You're like, man, this is Yankee Stadium. This isn't the Tokyo Dome. So it opens up globally opportunities. Look, you look at the NFL, they're going to London, they're going to Germany, they're playing a game in Brazil, I think, next year, right? Everybody is looking to how do we expand outside of the U.S. and bring in other markets. And listen, the more foreign stars you bring in, not born in the U.S., the better those opportunities are, especially when they're superstars like Ohtani and Yamamoto.
How dire is it behind the scenes with what you've heard about the TV agreements, the rights, and all of that, given the money that needs to come in and the contracts that are being signed?
From what I've heard, I mean, listen, Fox signed a pretty big contract to keep Major League Baseball for a while. I think they have at least 5 years left, right, for the World Series, and that was in the billions. Every team gets a cut of that. Every team has their own local TV deal. The one thing that people have to understand about baseball, it's a regional sport mostly, right? So people tune into their local broadcast and they say, all right, I'm a Yankee fan, I'm gonna tune into Yes Network. I'm a Dodger fan, I'm turning into Sportsnet LA. I'm a White Sox fan, I'm tuning into NBC Chicago. So it's important for those networks to keep those teams on the broadcast because it brings in revenue for the channels and it gives them almost unlimited program. They can run reruns and do pre and post game shows and all that. So I don't know it's as dire as we're making it out to be. The problem is that, what is it, Bally? I forget who.
Yes.
Sinclair Media.
Yep.
They bought them and then they didn't realize what it cost to run these, and now they're kind of. I think eventually, and I don't know if we want to see this. Major League Baseball is starting to take over all those. Do we really want a centrally owned broadcast for Major League Baseball? Like, is that the best for the game? Because don't you want local? And I know they'll hire local people, but I don't want like a national pre and post for every game. Like I want my local guys to tune in and see the San Diego Padres guys talking about it and see the Seattle Mariner guy talking about their team, because that's where you get the true insight because they're on the ground every day. Listen, I do national games all the time for Fox. I might see a team once a year. So I go in for 2 days and I try to get the most info I can in 2 days. You don't get it all, but those local guys are on the ground, man. And they know what's going on. They fly with these teams. They know exactly what's happening.
What did you think about Apple's coverage of Major League Baseball and what they're doing and the possibilities of streamers being an option where you could have that local broadcast you're talking about, AJ, but do it through a gigantic streaming company?
That's fine. But the problem with that is, like, there's people that don't know how to stream. Like if I told my parents, hey, I'm going to be on Apple, they're like, wait, what the hell's Apple?
Yeah.
Wait, on my phone? Right? They don't understand. So, I mean, as the generations turn over, it becomes a much easier thing to do as people cut the cord from cable. But yeah, streaming's an option. But guess what? What's the cost going to be? It's going to be the same cost for the games you have to pay on the cable. So again, it comes down to how much do people want to pay and how much are they willing to shell out to watch these games, and what's the most affordable way to get the most eyeballs on the sport.
So when you're playing high school baseball with Johnny Damon, do you guys look at each other and say, Yeah, the other guy's definitely going to be a major league ball player for many years. Was that crossing your mind then?
No, because Johnny was so much better. So I was a sophomore when Johnny was a senior, and he was so much better than I was. Heck, I was just trying to hang around Johnny and be like, man, I get to look at this guy and watch how good he is, because he was unbelievable, right? And at the time, I mean, I was 15 years old and just trying to pass my permit test to get my driver's license, whereas Johnny's talking about signing, being a first rounder. So no, I mean, I looked at Johnny and said, damn, this dude's going to be unbelievable. He probably looked at me, and we're good friends now. He probably looked at me and like, who's this little peon, following me around and trying to learn from me. So I probably annoyed him, and I was looking up to him.
How has NIL changed the way players are going from high school to pro, and the consideration now? We talk a lot of basketball and football for name, image, likeness. I'm imagining baseball, there's an influx of some really good talent that will go to college instead of take the path straight to the pros.
Yeah. Here's the thing now. The biggest thing about college to the pros now is they cut the draft way down, right? It's only 20 rounds. It used to be 50 rounds. It used to be unlimited rounds. You could pick until you ran out of people. There was years where people were picking like their daughters and their grandsons and their uncles and just to get them picked, right? Say, oh, he drafted, my uncle, right? That was kind of Mike Piazza. He was a favor, and then he turned out to be a Hall of Famer. Who knew? The thing is with only 20 rounds, when teams, and I coach my son's high school team, and I help coach my son's high school team, and I talk to kids, and they're like, oh, I'm thinking I'm going to get drafted. What do I do? And I'm like, well, if they call, because what teams do now is they pick up the phone, they call you, they say, hello, AJ, yeah, we're in the third round. We have $750,000. Will you sign for that? If you say yes, they'll draft you. If you say no, they're like, all right, they call the next guy, right? All right, hello, until they get the guy that'll say yes. And like, oh, perfect. So it's become a little bit of a different thing. And with the college NIL money, I mean, there are some colleges that are paying big money for dudes. There are also a lot of colleges and colleges you've heard of that don't have that money for baseball. It goes to football, it goes to basketball, and so it's not, the money I don't think is as lucrative as it is at every school. Now, listen, there's schools, I'm not going to name them, but you can figure out who they are that have a ton of money for NIL and baseball because they have baseball people backing them. But it's kind of a bad thing. I think the transfer portal in college baseball has been tough because if you're a freshman, you go to a Florida, LSU, Texas A&M, whatever, whoever the big powerhouses are, Tennessee, are you going to play as a freshman at a high school unless you're probably a first-round pick later on? Or are you better off going to a smaller school, a Mercer or Coastal Carolina, playing your first year, putting up numbers, then the coach at LSU and Florida calls you and goes, hey, you had a pretty good year last year. Oh, yeah, you want to come here? Oh, yeah, by the way, we'll pay you whatever amount to come here. I mean, that seems like almost a better path now.
So, AJ, you played for 7 different teams in the course of your career, spent the most time with the Chicago White Sox. Last week, MLB winter meetings in town in Nashville. Nashville, a hotbed of rumors around a Major League Baseball team eventually coming here. Jerry Reinsdorf was photographed with the mayor of Nashville. What do you think about the possibility of the Chicago White Sox not being in Chicago?
I think it's comical to me. I think it's I love Jerry Reinsdorf and I love the White Sox organization, and I work for them as a fan ambassador, and I think that Nashville will get a team. I just don't think it's going to be the Chicago White Sox. Now, I don't know anything more than what you guys know, and I know the meetings happened and this and that, but I just can't. Jerry's a Chicago guy. Jerry's the Bulls. He's the White Sox. I just can't see Jerry being the guy that's like, oh, I moved the White Sox out of Chicago. Now, do I think MLB will expand to Nashville? Yes, because listen, who doesn't love going to Nashville, going on Broadway, doing the whole deal? I mean, everyone loves, oh, where are you going? Nashville. Oh, hope you survive, right? It's like almost become like a mini Vegas without the casinos, right? It's like, oh man, I'm going to Nashville. I can't wait. So I think MLB will get to Nashville, but I think it's going to be expansion. And I thought it would be Vegas and Nashville coming in together, but now Oakland's taking Vegas. So the interesting thing will be, where is the other team besides Nashville when MLB does decide to expand, which the rumors are by 2028.
Yeah. Nashville, like Vegas, you leave after the weekend with a headache. Just you have more money when you leave Nashville instead of Vegas.
I don't know if you know, but Broadway's not that cheap.
No, it depends on where you go in Nashville to see if you're going to have more money or not.
No card games. Games being played, but no card games. Finally, just a final minute, AJ. Chicago, I know the Bears are struggling to find what they're going to do with their stadium. What's up with all the discussion with the pro teams, with the city, and why they can't come to some terms on the future of their pro sports franchises?
Well, everyone wants a stadium, right? Doesn't everybody want it? The Titans, aren't the Titans getting a new stadium?
Yeah, they are.
Getting one, yeah.
Not much controversy about it, though. It's weird.
Well, it depends on, every city is run a little bit differently, I guess would be the right way to say it.
Yes.
So, why couldn't Oakland get a stadium in Oakland before they had to move to Vegas, right? Why couldn't, the Rays are finally about to get a new stadium. It's taken them, 20 years to try to figure one out over in Tampa. So it's just about the cities you're in and what the priority is. And in Chicago, they definitely want private money, and they definitely want, less public funds. And if I don't know if you've ever been to a game at Soldier Field, it's a great stadium,
Yes.
but getting in and out of there
It's
is
brutal.
a freaking nightmare. It is awful.
Brutal.
Right. So they need to move from that place, and with all the history and everything. But what's the best option? And the other problem you have is every team wants like what Atlanta Braves have, right? The Battery. Every team wants that, and
You need space.
finding that land to do it, and also finding the city that'll give it to you is what's tough.
You're right. AJ Pierzynski, he's been our guest. Hey, thank you so much, man. Loved having you on. Hope we can do this again soon.
This is great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. And anytime.
Awesome. Loved having him.
He knew
Love
Johnny
his
Damon.
coverage.
He knew
Oh,
Johnny
that's-
Damon was
that's
saying
awesome.
big things, but he was underrating himself.
I bet Damon
then he went on
was-
to a long career.
David was like the sixth grader that could have the mustache. There was always that one guy.
Damon's the guy you want to hang out with because he probably got all the girls, too, is what I'm guessing.
Clay Travis joins us next.
So in 2019, Sean McDermott, talking to his team in training camp, gave a really stupid analogy. I mean, really stupid. He was talking about 9/11. He was talking about how well coordinated the attackers on our country were. And he was trying to make a reference about communication. He was trying to make a reference that these folks communicated well to one another. It's totally idiotic. I mean, I don't give a damn whether they communicated well. I don't give a damn whether or not they synchronized. I don't care. They were criminals, terrorists, at that got the absolute, well, they're the absolute worst of the worst. And I get a little fired up and I stumble over my words. I actually had stuff written down for this, but here's the thing. You got to understand when you're speaking in public, I don't give a damn if you're trying to make a cute analogy. You never use Hitler. You never use 9/11 terrorists. They are the worst of the worst, period. There's nothing good about them. I don't care. How many times have we heard people talk about Hitler and say, yeah, but no, there's no yeah, but. When you do what these folks did to people and families, our country, other countries, you simply never praise them ever. You're not being clever. You're not being smart. You're not making a great analogy. You're being an insensitive clown. And I never use the word insensitive. I don't. I honestly don't. Insensitive to me is meaningless. Let me change that. You're being just a moron. Don't do it. It's not smart. It's not clever. It's not, well, look at how he. No. Horrible human beings. You never reference John Wayne Gacy or Dahmer or Manson. Never. In no way, shape, or form. Now, having said that, hey, how about we get over ourselves? How about we get over what happened 5 years ago, 4 years ago? And here's the deal in sports, and I've told you this before, okay? There's always the list. And when things go bad, here comes the list. So all of a sudden now, the Buffalo Bills are struggling. All of a sudden now, Sean McDermott's leadership is being called into question. And all of a sudden now, something that McDermott has apologized for, both in front of the team and to his bosses, 4 or 5 years later is being brought out. Now, that's ridiculous. Look, we're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to do stupid things. At least that's what the preacher tells me on Sunday. At least that's what when somebody in church, Traders Point Christian Church, says, hey, look, if you've sinned, raise your hand. And everybody raises their hand and the preacher says, yeah, I did too. We're all sinners. and we all demand forgiveness, except when it comes time to actually forgive and forget. We never do that. We just can't. We won't. We're so full of crap. We just are. And you can act and say like we aren't, but we are. Who here hasn't sinned? Cast the first stone and all that stuff. Oh, yeah, we're all sinners, boy, when somebody does, particularly in sports, particularly when they're losing. We can't wait to jump on them.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us for Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow. The OutKick store playing on a new field. That's right. The new OutKick store just launched, and to celebrate, we're offering a buy one, get one 50% off deal for a limited time. You can find your favorite polos, t-shirts, and more when you visit shop.outkick.com. Score 50% off. All you've got to do, visit shop.outkick.com and add the items to your cart, and the discount will be automatically applied. Most likely to yell at the ref. You got the dad hat there on the screen. Clay Travis joins us. He certainly
He's both of those
had
things.
that merch. Yeah, that's right. Clay, hope you're doing well, man.
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Excellent. When does the Australia trip begin?
I leave Friday. So we leave Friday, New Year's, and Christmas down under. Whole family, whole crew. So it's a big trip, longest flight certainly that I've ever been on, and I can't wait. I'm excited. I've never been to Australia. I've wanted to go for a long time, so it should be pretty awesome.
What's the one thing that everyone you've asked who has been says you have to do?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think probably the Great Barrier Reef is something that's pretty incredible to see. I'm excited to get out there and snorkel and see all of the beautiful things there.
That's
right?
awesome.
We're going to be out in the boat for the day, I mean it's a wonder. So I think that, and then everybody really speaks up just how beautiful Sydney is on the harbor. And so I'm excited to see just how incredible it is. Most of my knowledge of Sydney, frankly, comes from the fish movie that Pixar did. So I'm looking forward to seeing it myself.
Crocodile Dundee for me.
Yeah, I'm more of a Crocodile Dundee guy. That's great for the Australia Board of Tourism.
Foster's beer.
Sydney in particular. Yeah, Sydney in particular. Also, there's a rainforest we're going to be in, which is going to be pretty awesome.
Awesome.
I mean, it's going to be a pretty incredible trip, so I can't wait.
The closest I'll ever get to Australia this holiday season is an Outback Steakhouse at some point. So that Bloomin' Onion is terrific, I will say. Also terrific, Clay, the deal that the Dodgers are getting with the deferred money for Shohei Ohtani. And it's smart of Ohtani, of the Dodgers, where they can defer $68 million of the $70 each year and go out and attract top talent. But there's something that just doesn't feel right about this, that you can manipulate the system to that extent and hold all that money over for a decade from now in order to get more top talent. What do you think about that?
Well, my understanding is that under salary cap, they don't have salary cap, but under luxury tax rules, that 46 million of that money counts. So they would have to pay taxes on it otherwise. And again, I'm not an accounting expert, but there is a real value of a future earnings. And people who, are super smart business people would look at this and say, okay, that he may get X right now, but the real implied value of $70 million, or for this case, $68 million in 2034 or whatever the first year is X. And I think they said it's 46 million. So I presume that the way this works is Shohei Ohtani's probably getting all of that money in advance, a lot of it, because you'd typically rather have cash on hand, but he's doing it through an investment bank instead of from the Dodgers. So that's kind of the way that I would presume this is structured. And I think it would really matter if there was a salary cap, because obviously then you're working around the salary cap. But it still matters for purposes of the luxury tax, which is kind of a default salary cap because it's designed to discourage people from spending way more, the big market teams from the small market. So having read up on it, I think it's probably fair.
The end of the Chiefs-Bills game, Clay, does Patrick Mahomes look like a huge baby, or do you feel like he has a point in all the ranting and raving with the offensive offside call?
No, so look, I obviously have got all sorts of opinions on officiating over the years, but what I'm really consistent about is I don't think that flags should be thrown or a call should be made when no competitive advantage is gained. And let me explain what I mean for that purpose. There was no benefit for Kadarius Toney from being lined up offsides like he was. If you're lined up offsides and you're rushing the passer, you can see why the competitive advantage is significant. No one has been able to point to me and say, hey, that extra half foot that he got somehow fundamentally altered the outcome of the play. So my position is you could call a flag on every single NFL play. Like that is, I believe if you went back over every play, you can find a violation of the rules on every single NFL play. Illegal hands to the face, holding, pass interference. I think you can throw a flag, an official can, every single play. To me, you throw flags when either the foul is so egregious that everybody agrees, oh my goodness, you have to call it, and or when someone gains a competitive advantage. And to here, I did not think the Chiefs gained a competitive advantage at all. I think this is nitpicking. Was it stupid of Kadarius Toney to be lined up offside? Yes. But I would err on the side of letting players decide the outcome of games, not on throwing flags for relatively inconsequential violations that do not alter the outcome of a play. So I wouldn't have thrown a flag there. And I imagine what I probably said is ultimately what Patrick Mahomes is reacting to. And I feel this way on all sports, whether it's baseball, basketball. I don't know hockey well enough, but football, if there's 30 seconds left and you suddenly decide to call 3 seconds on a guy who just spends a little bit too long in the lane on that possession, or you call an away from the ball foul in basketball, I feel like the game was cheated, right? And so I feel like the game was cheated there relative to the penalty that was called.
Clay Travis with us. Clay, Matt Araiza is no longer facing the civil lawsuit. The lawsuit's going to be dropped, according to his attorney and him, who spoke on this today. No settlement on his end, an agreement that he would not sue the woman, but he still can sue Dan Gillian, her attorney. And he spoke on it and said, had he just filed the lawsuit and not gone on a big media tour, it might have been different. But the way he handled it was unbelievably unprofessional. Going to Twitter, starting this big social media campaign, it was ridiculous, and he'll be held accountable for his actions. What do you make of this story now, given the fact that he's not facing any civil lawsuits from her? She's dropping it now. And the fact that he's going to be back in the league. I'm looking around and thinking he beat out a veteran just prior to being released because of this story. And he's going to be back in, and the reputation of Araiza, that is what needs to be the focus instead of the details of the story that are not true.
Well, also the money that he would have made, he's never going to make. So there is a real economic hit, leaving aside what is clearly a character assassination. But let's say that he would have played. I mean, the $1 million that he would have made this year, or whatever his salary would have been, $600,000. I don't know what a punter would have made in his situation.
He signed 4 years, a little over $3 million. He had a $250,000 signing bonus at the time.
Okay, so he would have been a free agent in how many years has he been out now? 1 full year? I can't keep up with how long this story's been going on.
Yeah, 1
full year. So he doesn't get credit for the money that he would have made. He doesn't get credit for free agency. It's true that he will never make the money that he would have made from playing 1 year of football. So he's been wronged 100% economically by that. But I think the economic hit is actually less significant than the reputational hit.
Yeah.
And I've been arguing this for a long time. I don't think it's a difficult decision. I think if you make up a false accusation of sexual assault, that you should be charged with a crime, and the punishment that you face should be the same that the guy or the accused would have faced as well. I think there should be mirror image here for charges. And so I think this idea of, oh, well, she just made it up, and now she says, oh, she's dropping the civil case, and there were no charges brought and everything else. Once you say that guy raped me, you can never unring that bell, because as much as we might hope that everybody sees the resulting story and recognizes that his name is now cleared, that isn't the reality. The allegations typically get way more coverage than the vindication. And so I think this woman should be charged with a crime and should face significant criminal consequences for, by her own admission now, lies, right? If she's dropping the civil case and they investigated it criminally and found no basis for it, then she lied, and there should be consequences for that.
So imagine right now, Clay, being Ward Manuel. You've got a football team that's the number 1 overall seed in the college football playoff, getting ready to play for a national championship. You got everything going on with Jim Harbaugh, Connor Stallions, NCAA investigation. Then you get a phone call from your HR department about a complaint filed by your basketball strength coach against your head coach, because the head coach and the strength coach got into an altercation while the head coach was recovering from open heart surgery and is not currently serving as the head coach of the team. I'm talking about Juwan Howard and Michigan basketball. And now a lot of thoughts out there that he may be done as the Michigan basketball coach before this thing is all said and done. What do you make of the situation there now with a second Michigan alum in Juwan Howard and his repeat offender status as someone clearly that's got a temper problem?
Yeah, I mean, I think if it's true, I mean, you conduct an investigation. I think unlike Jim Harbaugh, I don't think Juwan Howard has been so successful that you find it impossible to replace him. And so I think you probably go ahead and hire a new coach. And again, if it's true, because there is a history of him not being able to handle his temper, and I don't know why this would get better. And again, I don't know. They're going to conduct their own investigation. I used to do HR investigations, so I would imagine Michigan's got really good lawyers to look into this and try to figure out what happens. I try not to prejudge based entirely on allegations. You want to see what the actual facts are, undisputed facts, before you make a decision. But once you know what the undisputed facts are, to the extent that they exist, then I don't think it's wrong to make a determination about whether or not somebody should be able to represent your university.
Clay, we've got college football, the bowl games kicking off this weekend. You've got your 12 winners right now at OutKick.com. In regards to the ones you're most confident in, where do you start?
Well, I mean, I think the challenge with bowl games in general in college football is you have to analyze two things: who's playing and who has motivation. Meaning, with the transfer portal going on, guys going pro, it's sometimes very hard to figure out what the actual roster is going to be. Ohio State's a good example. Missouri's a 2.5-point favorite. Missouri would not have been a 2.5-point favorite in the regular season. In fact, Missouri probably would have been a 9 or 10-point underdog to Ohio State. So the line has moved nearly 2 touchdowns based on who's playing and also the motivation. So I think you have to analyze that. I like Mizzou in that game. The games that are relatively easy to analyze are the playoff games. Michigan and Alabama are going to go as hard as they can, and you know that certainly you're going to get the same thing from Washington and Texas. I like Texas to cover. I like for Alabama to win outright and also cover as an underdog. And I think it's going to be Texas versus Alabama for the national championship game on January 8th.
And Florida State as well against Georgia.
I like Florida State to cover. Again, that's a motivation game to me. I think Georgia exists to win championships, and sometimes when teams aren't able to compete for a championship, that's a big number, 2 touchdowns, 14 points. I think Georgia is the better team, but I think Florida State's going to be the more motivated team. And so I think it's a shame that we're not getting to see these two teams play in the playoff when we would have gotten absolute apex level performance from them. But I think Mike Norvell telling his team, hey, you could be 14-0 and really stick it to the committee by beating a team in Georgia that they have no faith that you're going to be able to beat. I think college kids are going to respond well to that. I think Georgia's more talented. I think Florida State's more motivated. And so I like Florida State plus the points.
Clay, enjoy the time down under. Can't wait to follow you on social with all the photos, especially with the fam.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be on Twitter as much for the next couple of weeks, but certainly I'm going to post photos on Instagram if people are interested what that experience is like. That's probably the place where I'll pop more stuff for sure.
Thanks, Clay.
Man. Thank you. There's Clay Travis.
Everybody have a good Christmas and New Year.
Yes, Merry Christmas.
Same to you. I can't wait to hear his media plan for that long flight to and from. Movies watched, books read, or does he just sleep the entire time? That's what I'm going to ask him when he comes back.
Coming up, we've got headlines including the NFL and more international games.
What would you spend on an engagement ring?
I'm not an engagement ring type of person. But if she wanted a ring, I'd probably spend like 20 on it.
20 what?
1,000.
20,000. That's a lot of money.
You gonna get that lady a real answer? No, for real. Ain't it how much she make though?
Price, I didn't really care. Size, absolutely. Had to be big enough it could be seen, and I didn't want like a basic ring. I wanted like eclectic, like vintage looking. Okay. So we did a custom order to do my ring.
I didn't have a preference. I just had a gold preference, and he kind of took it from there.
And you trusted him. Did he crush it?
Oh yeah, he crushed it.
I've been spoiled thus far, and so I don't think I could ever go back from what I received last time.
Okay, so high standards. That's good. What are the standards?
Okay, it was 5 carats.
Okay.
And it was beautiful.
Mine was way too expensive.
What's way too expensive?
Like $45,000.
Okay.
Wow.
You probably went with a real diamond.
Very much so, yeah.
Do you think that that's kind of a flex for the guy? Like, is the engagement ring, is the engagement ring only for the girl, or do you get to watch other people look at your girl's ring?
Solely for the girl. Solely for the girl.
You don't get any enjoyment?
Couldn't care less.
Do we think gender roles are a thing of the past, or we should bring them back?
I feel like it depends on certain things, but I feel like now it's like a teammate. Like that should be your partner, your teammate. Like I'm not cleaning all the house all the time because I'm not your mom.
I agree. We're double income, no kids, so I really like a partnership, but I don't want to take the trash out. Yeah. So he's going to have to do that.
She takes the kids, I provide. Very traditional.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you think that more young people should do that?
Yes, very much so.
What is it about like a motherly quality that you like?
It's worked for thousands of years and it still works today.
I like being girly. I'm a girl and I like being girly, so I like traditional gender roles.
Okay, well, according to the 7 Hermetic principles, one of those being the law of gender, gender manifests on all levels, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, all levels. Throughout the cosmos, there's gender. I don't know, it's a light. It's a book I read called The Supreme Way of Men or Women or something like that, and it spoke on how whether it's 2 women or 2 men, there still has to be someone who's masculine, someone who's feminine.
My friend, do you know what Riz means?
Yeah, Riz is it's like game. You know what game is? Like when you're trying.
I don't have any, but I know what it is.
It's like the new word for game. So meaning like you're able to speak well and get, a date kind of.
I do not.
Do you have any guess?
I could guess.
What do you think?
It's like, I don't know, razzle dazzle. I don't know.
Kind of. Actually, you're not too far off. Charisma.
You know, charisma. I've been able to talk someone up.
Did you read that online, or did you already know what that meant?
I'm on TikTok way too much.
Okay, another word that has become very popular this year. Do you know what mentee B means?
I don't know any of this stuff. I'm not on social media. I don't know any of it.
What about mentee B? Do people use the word mentee B in real life?
What is that?
You don't know mentee B?
I've never heard of mentee.
A mental breakdown?
What?
Mentee B.
A mental breakdown.
Oh, you have a mentee B every night. But I like that. I didn't know that, but I like that.
Mentee B, is that like that chocolate mint thing?
What does mentee B mean?
I have no idea. I don't know what that is. Mentee B, you ever heard?
You don't know mentee B?
I've never heard mentee B. Never in my life.
Sixth and Peabody, our broadcast site, studio located, Music City, Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hot Mic with Hunting with our rolls on across the OutKick network. Coming up, we've got some great screenshots of a Georgia Bulldogs message board in regards to the transfer portal. Some news on that in just a moment. Today's the deadline. If you want OutKick gear under the Christmas tree this holiday season, got to hop on to shop.outkick.com today for shipping purposes. It'll arrive before Christmas, and you could buy one, get one 50% off for a limited time. Find your favorite polo, T-shirts, and more. Shop.outkick.com. Score 50% off. All you got to do, shop.outkick.com, and the items in your cart will have the discount automatically applied. We make it simple.
If that goes for every company, I probably need to get to work on some Christmas shopping online. If today's the last day to get it before Christmas, didn't even think about that. But there's some things I need to order online. Probably need to do that today. So that's a good reminder.
Chad, there's some news with college football in the transfer portal where college athletes who were denied the chance to play immediately after transferring a second time, they can return to competition for now. That coming from a federal judge. There's a 14-day temporary restraining order that was handed down today in northern West Virginia that allows this to happen.
So
the order against the NCAA enforcing the transfer rule. So if you transferred, this is across college basketball and everywhere, 14-day stay, a restraining order.
So if you wanted to transfer again and you were worried about the NCAA holding it up for a second time, you can do that in this 14-day window and be fine.
Yes, while the NCAA had to announce this to the schools will not be punished during this 14-day window either. If you this is a 14-day window up until they'll have a hearing December 27th about this.
But so theoretically, let's say a football player decides I want to transfer for a second time right now. They have 2 weeks to do it. And they can go to the school.
You have 2 weeks to play. If you were not allowed to play based on the restrictions of your second transfer, you can play right now. This affects hoops immediately.
Yeah, but 2 weeks or for the rest of the season?
For 2 weeks until they have the hearing, and then the hearing, that could produce the rest of the season. It could also just go back to the rule. But the judge has filed this, he's agreed to this temporary restraining order, allowing transfers who have done so for a second time to play during this one. Schools will not be punished for it either until the hearing takes place and something is actually decided beyond that on December 27th.
Yeah, not a huge deal. I don't know how many teams this affects. There are some, obviously, if this is going on right now. It'd be a huge deal if they just allowed it for 14 days, that they said, hey, now is a free-for-all. If you want to transfer for a second time, you can do it during this stay, this 14-day period, and go somewhere else. And once you're on campus, you're fine. But then my question would be, well, in 14 days, they come back and say it is lawful then are they not eligible under NCAA rules? So,
well, this goes
yeah,
to,
I guess if you've transferred a second time, you've been held out. Now's the time to play for 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I mean, this goes back to January of this year when the council, the NCAA council, Rules Council, agreed to limit eligibility for second transfers. That's what this judge has filed and has ruled against, at least until the hearing where he'll hear from the NCAA. But the schools know that they won't be punished for playing a player who's ineligible. And to me, this leans more towards we'll just go back to what we had with the portal being wide open and the second transfer not factoring in if you have the federal judge doing this. So we'll see this take place in hoops, but also bowl games, right? You got a guy who has transferred for – I always go back to the left tackle who was denied eligibility at Colorado this past year, who tried to leave and join Deion
for mental
Jackson
health
State. Reasons. That's what he said. He was depressed that he couldn't play with Deion Sanders, wanted to go there, and had his eligibility taken away.
Yeah, it just I don't. If they get to play for 2 weeks, then they say no after 2 weeks. That's kind of painful, also. Hey, congrats! You had to play in 3 games. Now conference play is starting, and you got to go back on the bench. You're ineligible again. I don't know how that helps anyone, but I'm sure we'll see some teams enact it.
Yeah, man, it sucks for those that transferred prior to this new policy in place last January, because a lot of players, every player, did so with the idea that they would be eligible to play until they went back and limited that eligibility. So if you're going to open it up. And then they take forever to rule one way or the other, like we saw at North Carolina.
Hutton, I told you that I watched Bill Belichick on College Game Day this Saturday, and I saw a completely different Bill Belichick than normally what I see. Well, we see Bill Belichick coaching a team, totally different personality, doesn't say much, very gruff. The thought is that Bill Belichick is done in New England.
That's the report
after
from Tom Curran, that he has heard.
That he's out.
And they made that decision on their way back from the trip to Germany a few weeks ago, where it was, Ben Volen, who had the report that their dream candidate is Mike Vrabel. Then he had the report that the Germany game is really factoring into the future of Bill Belichick. That was the same week that the reports came out that a long-term extension had been signed. Tom Curran at the time, NBC Sports Boston, reported that the long-term extension, the extension was there. Long-term meant it had been negotiated beyond this season, but it was only for an extra year, and that it expires after next season. So the terms really don't factor in. If you want to make a move, you can still make a move. And he has been told that the decision has already been made, that they're parting ways at the end of the season. 25 days from today, the NFL season will conclude. And in a very short time frame, we will have a finality to what's going on with Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft. But based on the certainty going into the season, that the reporters that are just they are the voice of what's going on in Foxborough. They are certain that he was on the hot seat going into the season. We had Curran on, and he agreed with that. Knowing all that, I buy this report. I buy the friction between the owner and the head coach, and I buy the fact that they've agreed to some extent to play it out. Belichick was asked about it. And, he's throwing out the line of, I'm just focused on Kansas City. On to Cincinnati was the vibe of the answer that he gave in regards to the idea that it's already been determined that he's no longer the coach at the end of the season and moving forward. To me, the focus should be on, well, if they've known this, but they didn't want to break up whatever was going on behind the scenes. Right now, they're 3-10. They hold the number 2 overall pick in April's draft. I'm now asking the question, well, who's up next? It's a tough act to follow, number one. And number two, it's an organization and a roster that doesn't have the type of NFL depth they used to, that doesn't have the same mindset, focus, the vibe, the aura of the Patriot way. That's gone. And the next hire has also expectations to live up to the same way Mac Jones did when he was drafted 15th overall. He's replacing Tom Brady. For years, 10 years in fact, it was thought that Josh McDaniels was the coach in waiting. Then they go down this path of just stupidity with the coaches that they hired to run the offense last season. But now they have Bill O'Brien, and no one's really mentioning Bill O'Brien as the guy. So who is it? Gerard Mayo is on the staff. He wasn't hired this past offseason, removed his name from consideration in a handful of interviews that took place, first and second interviews with teams. Mike Vrabel has been rumored out there as the dream candidate. And then there's just, well, a group of coaches that are young, that are known for right now calling really good games for talented offenses, but very unproven. But so was Belichick when he was hired, based on his record as a head coach in Cleveland. The names that'll float out there will be also picked apart. But to me, Chad, the decision's already been made on who Robert Kraft wants as well. And he's either trading for said coach, or he knows behind the scenes he's elevating one of his own, or he's about to go grab one of the top offensive coaches in the NFL. That's the sense. And I think that's the storyline. Because in 25 days, according to reports, Belichick's done in New England. The GOAT is either going to another team or he's stepping aside and going into retirement or into media, whatever. Who's next to run the dynasty that was the New England Patriots?
It's got to be Gerard Mayo if you're going to elevate someone, I would think. That's the only one to me that makes sense right now of a coach on the rise that took his name out of other head coaching opportunities.
Right.
So if you're going to, and I don't know they're going to do that, but if you're going to stay on staff with a Patriot way type guy, to me, Gerard Mayo is the one that you're promoting to head coach. And I think just as important as the coaching decision here is the general manager decision, because Bill Belichick has been both for so long. So the pairing of head coach with GM in New England is obviously of vital importance moving forward.
And you want the GM as the first hire, right?
Is this going to be a hiccup in the franchise, a hiccup in the dynasty? Or is this going to be a long-term Patriots going back to being the Patriots before Belichick and Brady for years to come? That's how important these two hires are. It's not one. It's a head coach and a general manager where you had both in one with Bill Belichick. So what direction they go there? Someone familiar, someone outside the Patriot family as the GM. Same goes for head coach. I'd throw Matt Patricia in there also as a guy who once was coveted and is no longer. When you go with McDaniels and O'Brien and Patricia, those would have been the top three guys that would have been elevated had they not been failures elsewhere. And now, to me, Gerard Mayo is the one guy who makes the most sense if you're going to go that direction. Unproven as a head coach, but someone you've cultivated within your franchise, within that Belichick system. Or do they want to completely break from that and go with something else? I think that'd be a mistake. I think to throw everything away and say, well, we want anyone other than Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick's responsible for a lot of roster success as the GM, as well as a lot of success as the head coach. Didn't work out post-Brady, but still a great coach. The Super Bowl rings show that. And also a really good GM for the most part, most of the time in New England. So where do you go with both those hires? Huge question moving forward for the Patriots.
And the one landing spot I haven't heard for this coach is New England. Jim Harbaugh. I only bring it up because if you're going back to the GM head coach, it's all in the same. He's the only candidate I can come up with that would require that power. That's it.
Did he have any GM ability with the 49ers?
No, he had a separate general manager there.
Yeah.
But among the Vegas favorites right now, the favorite is Gerard Mayo at plus 200. The rest, Vrabel in order. Mayo, Vrabel, Bieniemy, Bill O'Brien, Ben Johnson, Josh McDaniels, Jim Harbaugh, Brian Johnson. It's not a who's who list. So
Jim Harbaugh is pretty good long money bet on that one if you're going to go with a big-time plus money for someone.
But to me, Robert Kraft knows that the leadership qualities that he wants, and he knows what Gerard Mayo's about or where he doesn't meet up with the same expectation and path that he wants to go down. But it's been reported from those entrenched in Patriots coverage that Belichick and Kraft are parting ways at the end of the season.
You know, it's amazing because we associate everything together. Belichick, Brady, Kraft. I don't know what Kraft is without Belichick and Brady also moving forward. Like, I think he's going to make the right decision and know what he wants, but he's had the benefit of both those guys for so long that who knows how he's going to be at picking a GM and a head coach.
Well, but he's smart enough to know what he doesn't have right now, and that's a playoff organization. And I think that's also important. A lot of owners don't know that, right?
We'll find out how good he is at hiring a coach.
Further headlines straight ahead.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I made the call to end the Me Too movement. And today I'm going to continue making that case. And that's just a way to further taunt these women, to make them feel less than, to make them realize that this has just become a big joke. Deion Sanders is the Donald Trump of football.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, a bold taste of a Southern legend.
Chad, look at the time. Just like that, the final hour is here on this Wednesday edition. Hot Mike with Hutton Withrow rolls on. 6th and Peabody, our location, with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Fast-paced show today.
Very fast. This has been fun. You know, the chat's been good, too. That's what I always look at. I weigh a lot of things by the intensity of the chat and what's happening there.
What's intense
You know
today?
what's intense? My daughter's performance in the Christmas play last night.
Bravo.
I would give this to our team to show, but I don't know all the rules about other kids being in a video that we show, so I'm not going to do it.
Oh,
because I'd have to get all the parents to sign a
Okay.
waiver because there's other kids performing next to her in the Christmas play.
Yeah.
So I don't want to jump through those loops. Don't want to get us taken down off any outlets also.
Does she have a vote
so I'm not going to do it.
the SAG Awards now based on having an on-camera
pretty soon
appearance?
she will. I mean, you joked yesterday that we're going to have like a trust in her name when she gets a big.
You'll be the conserve.
She's going to have a big Disney movie contract coming up where she's going to be in all the holiday movies.
Yeah.
My daughter is the ultimate ham. And I mean, she was as comfortable. I grew up as a very shy kid when I was younger. Did not want to get up and do any type of play or sing in front of people or grab a microphone and talk to people.
No, I'm right there with you.
I mean, to brag on my daughter Evie a little bit, this girl had the microphone, the headpiece microphone attached to her. Pretty sure she was operating the microphone, turning it on and off for her speaking parts, then going back to a group, doing all the motions during the singing and the songs, and doing them with as much flair as anyone else up there. Had probably as many words spoken as anyone else. There's probably 3 or 4 of the other kids who spoke equally as much. Hutton, I was blown away. You and I could get everybody in the studio right now and all of our friends together, and I don't think we could put together a production as sound from a play standpoint as these third graders did. They practiced a lot, but I was amazed. No one stepped on the other's line. No kid completely blanked and forgot they were supposed to speak at any point. They didn't have to nudge anyone to tell them to talk. It was seamless throughout.
This was the Christmas program.
Christmas program. Yep.
This Christmas programs that I have observed, that you always have the kids that are silent and just staring off into space, right?
Yeah.
They're not really participating. They're just more or less they attend that church, and that's they do it.
Our church Christmas program will have a lot of that.
Okay.
It'll be a lot of the congregation
one
singing
is-
while the kids are silent and staring, wanting to be anywhere else.
This one, though, is the legit, everyone's involved. And
this was my
Evie
daughter's
crushed it.
school production, and the music teacher there just was Miss Schwartz. Incredible. Shout out to Miss Schwartz. I was blown away. I was sitting there with my parents watching, and pretty sure Tom and Debbie Withrow had a tear in their eyes. They watched. They were blown away, too.
Tom
I
and
have
Debbie,
not seen
shout
my
out.
daughter practice these lines. I think I saw her dance in front of the TV at one point doing the motions of the song. So I went into this thing blind, knowing that she was going to speak a lot. But I was blown away by what appeared to be a complete lack of nerves. And in fact, a desire to have the microphone and speak in front of all of these adults. I did not possess that trait as a kid.
Same.
That's something that is very much learned and developed over time. Now Hutton and I can be handed a microphone and talk to people because we've done it a lot as an adult. As a third grader, there is no way I would want to do what she did last night. So kudos to Evie.
Well, it's beyond that, though.
Very,
acting,
very proud.
The acting, being a character is different than just speaking in
They all
public.
had Southern accents. And I must say, my daughter's Southern
Before and
accent was
after.
great. But there was, there some had to exaggerate more than others.
Yes.
My daughter doesn't have much of an accent, so she really had to exaggerate. There was a little boy who was in the lead that, I mean, his accent, it was like Billy Bob Thornton and Sling Blade.
Haley Joel Osment.
He was so... No, I'm saying he was so slow. Like, it was so exaggerated, but hilarious the way he did it. He went so over the top with the Southern accent as opposed to everyone else who had
Just
to have
don't
a
let
Southern
her play
accent.
the role of Nell, and I'll be okay with it.
Yeah, I didn't have to do that. My one of my daughter's good friends was another one of the leads in the play, and she played a media member that was on TV. So she didn't have an accent at all. So everyone else had the accent that she was interviewing, but she was the newscaster and also did a great job. So
Shout out Evie.
shout out to all third grade, Miss Schwartz, to my daughter Evie, to all the kids. Again, I would show the video, but I'm afraid we'd get in trouble for doing that by someone, so I'm going to refrain from doing it.
Guys out there, anyone, keep in mind that a lot of places that you're going to be shopping, if you're doing it online, you need to do it today. Same goes for the OutKick store, which is relaunched, and it's great. OutKick store, brand new. And to celebrate, we're offering a buy one, get one 50% off deal for a limited time. And today's the deadline. If you want this here and under the tree in time, you got to order today. Shop.outkick.com. You visit shop.outkick.com, 50% off automatically applied at checkout. Do that today and get it under the tree. Chad, I feel like you immediately went to Amazon or something during the break because of the shipping aspect of it. You had to remind yourself. Did you make a note?
Well, I
today,
went out.
the deadline?
I like to physically shop for Christmas gifts. I really do. A little old school that way. But I don't. I like to know I'm going to go to this store and find something. Or I'm going to, I know where I need to go to get this.
You know what you're there for.
Yeah, I know about what I'm doing. I don't like to go to 4 different stores and try to shop around. But if I'm told someone really likes this store, go there and get something, that is a challenge to me. And I accept that challenge. I embrace it wholeheartedly, and I'm ready to go. So I like going and doing that shopping. I don't like shopping online. I never really do it. The extent of my online shopping for myself is I see something it's scrolling the gram, and I like it, and I look at it, and I think, oh, that's way too expensive usually when I click on it and don't buy it. But I'll send that to someone that may be getting me a gift and say, I like this type of stuff. And I'll send them that to really zero in on the type of stuff. So I like to actually go and shop. But now that I know, Hutton, that this is apparently the last day where you can get something delivered by Christmas Day, I will be online shopping when I get home. Because there are 3 items I know of that I've been sent that I need to buy online. I clearly need to do that today.
I always ask every year, what is the popular gift that kids are wanting from Santa?
Oh, it's always now a tablet of some sort, a phone. I mean, it's always something that, where you can do this.
Regardless of age?
Put a screen in your face. That's what every kid wants more than anything else.
But the age difference between your daughters?
With my youngest daughter, it's a bike.
Okay.
So that's what she wants more than anything. My oldest daughter wants a tablet of some sort. It really does depend. The Osmo was a game. It's a tablet type thing, but it's also like a learning device that my daughter wanted at some point. I'm trying to think. It's normally, it really varies age to age, but I think as you get into the 8 and up range, it's typically screen related is what the kids want more than anything else. But I mean, I think back to our childhood, and I remember wanting the original Nintendo, and then eventually the Super Nintendo.
Remember the kid that
so
got
that too was screen related. I can't say too much about that.
The kid that was opening presents and got the Nintendo 64 and just lost his mind.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I lost my mind when I got
the sister's just as pumped. Well, not just as pumped, but pumped. And then he is just, I mean, he goes insane.
We got when I was a kid Super Nintendo, and I think the first game I got or one of them was Street Fighter 2.
Yeah. Did it come
and
with
I remember my cousins came up from Florida when they were living at the time. They were a little bit older. And I mean, we spent a week between Christmas and New Year when they would visit. And I think we probably spent 8 hours a day just round robin tournament fighting each other in Street Fighter 2. I was Guile. Remember Guile, the military guy? That was my character that I fought with. But everyone, Blanca, the Beast, as we called him.
See, mine was
everybody had their own
I was more
fighter.
into Mortal Kombat.
I never got into Mortal Kombat. That was more of a Sega game, right?
Yeah, well, that's what we had. So you either had Super Nintendo or you had Sega Genesis.
Yeah, I never was a Sega guy. I had friends who had the Sega, so that's the only way I played Mortal Kombat. I was always a Super Nintendo guy. Got a question from the YouTube chat, Hutton, now that we're going down this tangent.
Yep.
Talking about my daughter putting on the Southern accent. Alib in the chat says, how exactly did Chutton escape the Southern accent growing up in Middle Tennessee?
Oh, I did not. I don't think. If I go back to the farm, it's like I think in any region of the country, if you go back to visit family, you end up speaking like them in some way.
There's the way you'll end certain words, I can hear a little bit of a Southern accent with you. The same goes for me. There's certain things I can't escape that I'll say it and you'll say, oh, this guy's not from Ohio, which I always refer to as the best non-regional diction in America because they sound like nothing. Typically, Missouri's probably another one. Sounds like nothing. Maybe parts of Indiana. Some parts have a Southern accent.
My thoughts on this. And I think 10 years ago, it probably plays a factor.
Quiet back there, Tyler.
Probably plays a factor.
I said something
Chad,
in Ohio, and he had to pipe in.
I think, everyone in college, if you were taking these classes, they wanted you to have that Midwest diction, right? With everyone that's moving to Nashville, I don't think it's like that much anymore. I really don't.
I don't either. I think Nashville proper, we're from the outskirts. I'm not going to say that I'm from Nashville. I'm from a surrounding county, and where I grew up was way more rural than it is now. Now, it was suburb. It's half suburb, half farming community. Hutton is from a very rural juror from back in the day on 30 Rock. It's from a very, very country community. So the fact that you've avoided it, to me, is more of a miracle than I. But I had family members that went to private schools around Nashville, no accent at all. If you went to a private school in Davidson County, I think that's as close to a non-regional diction as you can get with a lot of people I know that have no Southern accent at all. Honestly, the only way I can explain it away is I watched so much sports growing up and so much Sports Center I think I just naturally started to sound like the people I was watching on television call games or talk about games. I don't know that I chose it as much as I just morphed into that because that's what I watched so much.
And I also have family.
And by the time I was in high school, I had no real accent. I mean, this goes back to high school.
Oh, but the high school Southern accent is thick in Warren compared to compared to anywhere else.
Hutton, have you ever gone back? And our family does this occasionally. People convert the old VHS tapes, like family tapes of Christmases and things, and they convert it to something you can watch digitally. We do this occasionally, and if you go back and watch yourself, I remember watching myself swim in my grandmother's pool at like 7 or 8 years old. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you would have thought that I was the most like inbred kid from the sticks you've ever heard. It was so Southern that it was painful to watch. I mean, I was coming out of the pool. All right, Daddy, give me a gift. Throw me in the pool again.
The South will rise again.
It was amazing watching. I'm thinking, that's me? I kept hearing a little kid that clearly was well before puberty that had the most Southern accent ever that sounded like a little girl, and it was me the whole time. I'm thinking, man, I wish I could get the audio of that so we could play it for people to hear just how Southern I was at one point.
We should compare because I bet I was.
I was so
same way.
Southern as a little kid. So elementary school, I think the accent started to work its way out probably late junior high, early high school for me. But elementary school through junior high, I was as Southern as
thinking about
Southern
this,
as cornbread.
My grandmother's from North Carolina, very distinct accent.
Yes,
she never lost that. Virginia, very distinct.
Virginia Beach area sounds a little bit like Philly accent.
It's a combo.
Yeah.
It's a combination of is it East Coast? Is it the South? Like
whom.
it's a very
they go whom.
It's a very
not home, whom. That's how
right.
I describe the Virginia Beach accent.
Yeah, you're
My
right.
grandfather's from the coastal North Carolina, and he would say instead of your, say yorn, and go home.
Yeah, their O's are.
It's a weird O. It's very Philly in their O's.
Chad, Philly does have an NFL team.
That's an excellent segue.
One of 32.
Look how we went all the way through that. From Street Fighter to accents to Philly accents to the Philadelphia Eagles.
What's been my stance the last 3 years with Roger Goodell and international games, global games, and what
they're going to do more and more of them, and it's going to lead to a team internationally.
He wants his legacy to be that.
Yep.
And he is putting the NFL, the owners are putting games now in Brazil. I've also said Brazil and Spain will be the next two. Brazil is confirmed. They're going to play games next year there. And that means there will be 9 international games starting in 2024. The Brazil games, the league, in the regular season. And they're expanding the international slate in 2025. That will be 8 games outside the United States, plus Jacksonville's annual London game. Goodell, in a quote, says in this, I'm convinced that this game is going to be a global sport. we could have sold over our 2 games in Germany 4.5 million tickets. They're continuing to expand, and those that I heard the responses when I said, like, Goodell, they're going to put teams in Europe, and they're going to have their own division. They're headed that way because eventually the money, sports wagering, and so much more is going to demand it. And they will do it based on that. Spain's next, and then who knows where else.
I have a hard time imagining myself getting fully behind this concept because a full European division is so mind-boggling to me to try to comprehend right now. And watching our American teams play in Europe is cool, and I've had no issues adjusting to that. But thinking about a team in Germany, 2 teams in England, let's say, a team in Spain at some point is just crazy for me to imagine. But I do not disagree, Hutton, that whether it be adding actual teams in Europe or just completely expanding the footprint globally of the NFL, that is the next frontier for Roger Goodell. He's taken over America. Now he wants to take over the world and take over Europe especially. And if he can do that, that is quite the legacy.
It will be the push that way, and that will, when you think of Goodell, you're not going to think of discipline. He's gone away from that. Others are handling that within his office. Now it's about the international aspect and the dollar signs that everyone's seeing. Stay tuned. More coming. Hot Mic with Hutton Withrow straight ahead.
So in 2019, Sean McDermott, talking to his team in training camp, gave a really stupid analogy. I mean, really stupid. He was talking about 9/11. He was talking about how well coordinated the attackers on our country were. And he was trying to make a reference about communication. He was trying to make a reference that these folks communicated well to one another. It's totally idiotic. I mean, I don't give a damn whether they communicated well. I don't give a damn whether or not they synchronized. I don't care. They were criminals, terrorists, at that got the absolute, well, they're the absolute worst of the worst. And I get a little fired up and I stumble over my words. I actually had stuff written down for this, but here's the thing. You got to understand when you're speaking in public, I don't give a damn if you're trying to make a cute analogy. You never used Hitler. You never use 9/11 terrorists. They are the worst of the worst, period. There's nothing good about them. I don't care. You know, how many times have we heard people talk about Hitler and say, yeah, but no, there's no yeah, but. When you do what these folks did to people and families, our country, other countries, you simply never praise them ever. You're not being clever. You're not being smart. You're not making a great analogy. You're being an insensitive clown. And I never use the word insensitive. I don't. I honestly don't. Insensitive to me is meaningless. Let me change that. You're being just a moron. Don't do it. It's not smart. It's not clever. It's not, well, look at how he. No. Horrible human beings. You never reference John Wayne Gacy or Dahmer or Manson. Never. In no way, shape, or form. Now, having said that, hey, how about we get over ourselves? How about we get over what happened 5 years ago, 4 years ago? And here's the deal in sports, and I've told you this before, okay? There's always the list. And when things go bad, here comes the list. So all of a sudden now, the Buffalo Bills are struggling. All of a sudden now, Sean McDermott's leadership is being called into question. And all of a sudden now, something that McDermott has apologized for, both in front of the team and to his bosses, 4 or 5 years later is being brought out. Now, that's ridiculous. Look, we're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to do stupid things. At least that's what the preacher tells me on Sunday. At least that's what when somebody in church, Traders Point Christian Church, says, hey, look, if you've sinned, raise your hand. And everybody raises their hand and the preacher says, yeah, I did too. We're all sinners. And we all demand forgiveness, except when it comes time to actually forgive and forget. We never do that. We just can't. We won't. We're so full of crap. We just are. And you can act and say like we aren't, but we are. Who here hasn't sinned? Cast the first stone and all that stuff. Oh, yeah, we're all sinners. Boy, when somebody does, particularly in sports, particularly when they're losing, we can't wait to jump on them.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hot Mike with Hunting with Throw rolls on across the OutKick network. The NFL owners have unanimously approved the 2027 Super Bowl in Los Angeles. So it's headed to SoFi again. Good spot. Didn't suck.
There were worse Super Bowl locations that we've been to.
That's right.
Minneapolis being one of them.
Vegas. Yes.
Just to throw that out there. Houston.
Jacksonville is regarded as the worst host city.
That was still in college when that one took place. Yeah, same. So I wasn't at that one to know. I would say worst Super Bowl host cities that we've attended, Hutton. Minneapolis was weather-wise the worst.
Yep.
But it was kind of unique.
Dallas
in that everything was in the Mall
Dallas
of America.
Had an ice storm hit it the last time I was there.
Yeah.
That was the Rodgers Super Bowl win.
I'd say Atlanta's not the highest on my list of host cities either. And that could also be because I've been there way more than any of the other cities.
Yeah.
For different events, and it's 4 hours away from us.
Indy
was not the best. Another place I've been to a lot.
But it's centrally located for everybody. I mean,
Houston,
they had a good
Houston, not
good
great. Down the list.
So
Phoenix is cool.
It's the perfect layout.
But it's also but it's so spread out.
But they have a venue for literally everything.
Yeah, the downtown is actually very easy because there's not a lot of traffic in and out of downtown Phoenix. So it kind of creates the perfect footprint for our purposes.
So coming up, they've got, of course, Vegas this year at Allegiant Stadium. Then they will take the Super Bowl in 2025 to New Orleans. Then it's San Francisco. That will be Super Bowl 60. They also had Super Bowl 50. San Francisco, and then it's Los Angeles. Then you're going to get into the new stadium realm. And there are those that say, Buffalo builds a stadium, they'll never do it. Nashville Stadium's only going to seat 62,000. They will make standing room only and get it up to the 70,000 requirement. Why? Because they will not pass up an opportunity to show another city with public funding that if you do this, it will come. If you build it, the Super Bowl is coming. They will do one. And I think by, Chad, my guess is 2031, 2032, the Super Bowl's in Nashville.
It's a no-brainer. I mean,
the dome here is scheduled to open in 2027. We'll see. But they're breaking ground after the season. And 2027, that's earlier that year, will be the Super Bowl in Los Angeles. Once the stadium opens, then you're competing with Buffalo, maybe another one by then, who knows. Atlanta will be back in the mix soon. The Super Bowl will be in Nashville. And I think Buffalo will get one too. They roll the dice in New York at MetLife. I think they'll do it there.
I feel very confident in saying Nashville will be a better host city than Jacksonville was. I also feel very confident saying it'll be better than, no offense to Dan Dockich, but Dockich's hometown of Indianapolis.
It'll be great.
I think it'll be way better than those two places.
It will be great.
And I think the league's going to love it, and fans that come to Nashville will love it.
And the the public dollars continue to come in for these stadiums. Over $1 billion.
They do in certain cities, but as we heard from AJ Pierzynski, that those public funds aren't coming through in Chicago. And that's been an issue for new stadiums being built for White Sox and for the Bears.
Yep. And even in the private realm, they can't come up with a solution for the Bears right now. Crazy. So the Attorney General for the state of Florida is launching an antitrust investigation into the college football playoff committee that left Florida State out of the playoffs. Just initial reaction.
She's a Florida fan, by the way. She does want everyone to know she's not even a Florida State fan. She's just doing what's right for her state with Florida State. But continue.
How often do we hear, oh, shut up and play. It's just sports. We're doing the important things on this side. And then to get attention, you play into the sports element of this. Am I wrong for thinking that? Does it really matter? It's not going to change anything. Just because you went unbeaten, based on the policy that's in place, the committee determines the 4 best teams and they move on. And guess what else has happened? The discussion has moved on. Away from Florida State. 24-hour news cycle, the discussion about who should have been in, who was left out, who was deserving, who was better, all of that makes for great sports discussion. But in the grand scheme of things, what a complete waste of time. Total waste of time.
I get tired of politicians that clearly are pandering to their constituency, and they use a sports issue in order to act like they're doing something when they know they're not doing anything, just to get the headline that, well, at least they tried to do something. To me, this is just another charade to say, well, at least we tried, guys. Look at what I did. I protected the honor of Florida State University by at least trying to do this. Now, I will say, if she was actually successful in some of this and forced the selection committee and media companies and everyone to release correspondence about the decision, because she said specifically she wants to know what was related to Jordan Travis's injury, which, by the way, in the bylaws, they can factor in.
Yep.
So it wouldn't be unlawful for them to talk about that playing in. They said in interviews that played a factor with Florida State, being without their starting quarterback. But if they were to force something for that to be registered and put out there, that would at least be interesting. But it's not going to happen. And I rarely agree with Bill Hancock on anything, because that's another guy who's paid to just say, one thing no matter what, regardless of how silly some of it sounds. But when he says we're seeing a bit of an extreme reaction from the state of Florida on this, I totally agree with him. And it's not from the fan base of Florida State, who rightfully should be outraged by it. But when the state attorney general is getting involved
and being serious about it,
I mean, come on. I mean, it's you signed up to play under these rules. You didn't get the benefit of it this time. I agree with you that you got screwed if you're Florida State. I've talked ad nauseum about it. But if I'm someone who is publicly elected to serve the best interest of my constituency in my state, I am not wasting time on this. I would respect the hell out of a politician or an attorney general who said, even if they were a Florida State fan, if they said, while I'm a Florida State fan, I think they should have been in the playoff, I think this is probably a waste of state taxpayer money and our time to try to adjudicate something after the fact that is an agreed-upon system for which these teams go into a playoff. So I'm outraged by it, don't like it, but there's nothing that the state attorney general's office should do to get involved. I would raise my hand and say that person's smart, and they're right to say that even if I'm upset as a fan. But what we do is we get politicians that use sports for their advantage.
Yeah, and she's, whenever I'm reading the quotes of, we're, I know an injustice when I see it. I laugh at this. I know an injustice when I see it. That's why we are fighting for the hashtag unconquered FSU football team, demanding answers from the College Football Playoff Selection Committee.
See, now that to me is fake outrage. Right? That is total
unconquered
faux outrage by the Attorney General. I think the righteous outrage is coming from Florida State fans.
Sure.
And I do believe there is fake outrage out there on every issue. I do think there are actually some media members who are legitimately outraged because of what it says. I'm one of them, and it has nothing to do with Florida State specifically. It's just the idea that we need to rely on someone to project and tell us what will happen and not just rate what has already happened. That is my fundamental problem with that process and how they came to that conclusion. A conclusion which, by the way, got to a great 4 teams and 2 really good games, we think, but a process that's flawed and a thought process that is flawed to me with that. But this is faux outrage from the Attorney General. This is, I want to get clicks. I want to get press on this. I want to show that I'm doing something. I want to be loved by Florida State fans while also saying in there conveniently that I'm a Florida fan. But even as a Florida fan, I'm going to protect Florida State fans out there. Come on.
Is she?
Come on.
Is she also in the statement on social says, in Florida, merit matters. If it's attention they were looking for, the CFP committee certainly has our attention now.
I'm also.
This is like the prayer of Von Schmittou. Stand aside and watch the damnedest fight you've ever seen.
We need to get that prayer. I need to find the exact wording of it so we can recite it in studio every day before we start the show.
I want it engraved in the wall.
I'd like to ask everyone in studio to gather around and join hands as we recite the prayer of Francis Von Schmittou
in candlelight
before the Battle of New Orleans. I'm getting very uncomfortable
Chad's
about
ancestor, by the way.
This is speaking of Andrew Jackson, who fought at the Battle of New Orleans. A little history lesson for you. He got really pissed off at John C. Calhoun in the state of South Carolina because he started running off of the mouth about South Carolina versus the world. That led to a little thing called the Civil War, the American Civil War, for those that aren't well versed in American history, because South Carolina was ready to secede before everyone else. And Andrew Jackson, this was 20, 30 years before the Civil War, was threatening to go down there and duel him, to kill him. And then he shut his mouth for a time, and then eventually Civil War happened. I get a little bit uncomfortable with these states just declaring war on everyone else because of a sports outcome, right? That's what it sounds like to me. What is it, the merit? I'm going to defend the merit of Florida.
In Florida, merit matters.
In Florida, merit, okay. Like the state versus, we're now against every. If you're in Florida, you know that merit matters here. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Just serve your state. Serve your state and the people in your state. Have pride in it, absolutely. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be the 50 United States of America, but it should be United States of America. It shouldn't be every issue becoming our state versus your state versus every state.
Does merit matter when Florida State wants out of their conference because they're not getting their fair share?
Oh, well, that's where it matters more.
I'm saying,
to them, they're saying, hey, ACC has no more merit.
That's what I'm saying. So are they going to now go after the ACC because they're not getting their fair share?
Leave Miami behind. They're not counting Miami in their state, apparently, in the ACC contract. Miami also a private school, so probably don't care as much as Florida State, the state school.
Yeah.
I think so much of that stuff is just silly.
Of course.
Silly. Yeah. And this is silly.
I know it
for her to do
injustice
this
when I see it.
Right. I've seen plenty of them. Peyton Manning didn't win the Heisman Trophy. That's my injustice.
That's
the one I wish the state legislator of Tennessee would have gone to war with everyone. In Tennessee, merit matters. You know what else matters? Having more touchdowns than the guy who had 4 combined on both offense and defense all year, and that guy winning the Heisman. That matters to us in Tennessee.
Chad, I
still pissed off about that.
I was one that said Florida State would be in based on the unbeaten.
Based on they had them 4th.
They had them 4th, right? They got in the week prior.
I saw,
and they were jumped not once but twice.
I think I read an interview. Reese Davis even said it, where he said, "I think if the selection committee had a do-over, they would love to replace that week before rating,
right?
Because that's where it looks really bad. Where Florida State was 4th and fell out, having won their conference championship and being undefeated,
Florida, and beat Florida at that moment.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking like, okay, they jump in and they end up, and this story makes me this statement makes me like be glad that the Seminoles aren't in.
Well, it's
because of the grandstanding.
The great thing is that at least if it would have been Florida State in, and not, I mean, here's a good question for you. If it would have been Texas and not Alabama, would the state of Alabama's AG had threatened the lawsuit also against them for being left out? Probably not, because they lost head-to-head on the field. So they wouldn't have had a leg to stand on.
Yeah. That would have been it.
I think anyone else, you're not going to have this level of outrage because they would have had a loss. So the immediate comeback would have been Florida State got in ahead of you because they're undefeated.
And Texas got it.
And then if Texas gets the
would have been
4th
fourth
spot,
in that. Right.
What I think should have happened was Michigan 1, Washington 2, Florida State 3, Texas 4. If that happened, we don't have attorney generals grandstanding and telling everyone how they're going to sue the College Football Playoff Committee for antitrust violations.
Right.
That doesn't happen with that scenario.
Exactly.
Also, nothing's going to happen in this scenario but a lot of talk.
And that's it. Yeah. And no one's really talking about the bad things that took place to Florida State and what they missed out on. Now it's about we've got a great playoff. And what we're even last offseason, all we were talking about was a 12-team playoff and conference realignment. We were fast-forwarding a year anyway.
And college football has this built-in conspiracy/controversy around it forever. So Florida State fans will never forget this. This 2023 season will never be forgotten by Florida State fans as the year they got screwed.
Yep.
And that's fine. I understand that, and you should constantly remember that. So that's part of the sport, is the constant airing of the grievance and going back to one moment in time and remembering that moment that you feel an injustice. But a part of the sport should not be the attorney general threatening lawsuits because of it.
There's a quarterback that Georgia fans are trying to keep grounded. Amazing what they're trying to come up with and ideas and brainstorms that are taking place on message boards. Plus, Chad mentioned Reese Davis discussing power of ESPN and College Game Day on the College Football Playoff Committee. That's next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation. And pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I made the call to end the Me Too movement. And today I'm going to continue making that case. And that's just a way to further taunt these women, to make them feel less than, to make them realize that this has just become a big joke. Deion Sanders is the Donald Trump of football.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. that was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. A bold taste of a Southern legend.
Chad, it's been quite the early offseason so far for Nebraska. So much so that they've got Georgia fans talking. Got everyone talking.
They're the talk of the college football world right now. Kyle McCord visiting Lincoln from Ohio State, possibly transferring over. Dylan Raiola, who is the number 1 quarterback prospect in the country, committed for a long time to Georgia, now considering flipping to Nebraska. Matt Rule getting it done. Georgia fans not happy about it.
No, so much so that I believe this is Laguna Dog on the message board for Georgia posting yesterday. It's being reported that Raiola is going to visit Nebraska on Friday. I assume that he'll take the 2:21 p.m. Delta flight, which is also the last flight of the day to the state. Therefore, if this flight gets canceled, he likely won't be able to make the trip, and he'll stay committed to Georgia. Obviously, messing with commercial flights is a slippery slope, but I'm not suggesting that anybody does anything illegal, but does anyone here work for Delta? If some loyal Georgia pilots or flight attendants can call in sick at the last minute, the flight could be canceled, and we could keep Raiola. Maybe someone working could hold the flight up for quote-unquote maintenance issues. At the very least, he could lose his checked bags, so he'd have to experience the Nebraska winter without a jacket. I'm just spitballing ideas, but if anyone has anything else, those would also be appreciated.
Guys, don't do anything illegal. I would never condone or tell anyone to do something illegal. But if you can do something extremely unethical and affect those that paid a lot of money to go on a flight on this day by either not showing up or losing luggage or any of that, now's the time to give your all for the Georgia Bulldogs and make sure that happens so Dylan Raiola doesn't have a good experience in Lincoln. And losing his bags, do we think that Nebraska football, who apparently now is in big business with NIL, is going to allow Raiola to not have a coat when he gets to Lincoln if they lose his luggage? What you have done for Dylan Raiola by losing his luggage, he may already probably going to have this anyways, he's going to get gifted a new wardrobe of all Nebraska gear and probably other brand names that they are going to give him to wear the entire trip while he's in Lincoln. So
Hunter Stallion's had gear.
Losing his luggage has done nothing. Central Michigan, that provided Connor Stallion's gear, would also provide a winter coat for Raiola if he decided to visit Central Michigan. This is hilarious.
I mean,
this is college football fandom at its best.
So here's another post at Dogs 24/7 from Purple Brave, sorry. I've been to Nebraska. People are very nice there. It's cold, not much to do outside of college sports and farming. The women are also large. Maybe Raiola likes big girls. Not fat, but farm-fed, strong women. Like Brienne of Tarth.
Farm-fed is my new favorite term.
Like Brienne of Tarth from Game of Thrones. There's a reason Nebraska had great offensive linemen in the 80s and 90s. Athens can't provide him that. Outside of maybe Wisconsin, no other school can. Amazing.
Athens
I read these
can't
and
provide him that.
Yeah, Nebraska woman, not women. They are dead serious.
Oh,
These
no
fans
doubt.
are dead serious.
Farm-fed.
And that's why, if you are an attorney general in a state, you can act like you're serious and play to these idiots that take everything literally.
I mean, look, Nebraska...
Maybe someone works for Delta and can, lose his luggage.
It can confirm Nebraska has thin women, too, my wife being one of them. It is a state that has a lot of very large people, but not fat. It's a Scandinavian population. It is definitely a Brienne Tarth situation going on. Nebraska's got a very good volleyball team, okay? They're nationally renowned, very, very good. They have a lot of tall women, a lot of Nordic, Scandinavian-bred women. Farm-fed is one of my favorite phrases that I've ever heard. Nebraska football at its zenith featured many, many farm-fed Nebraska boys on the offensive and defensive line and fullbacks at the time under Tom Osborne. So, yes, that is a thing in Nebraska. But to think that Dylan Raiola, Dylan Raiola, #1 quarterback in America, is not going to get whatever he wants at whatever school he attends. Any school in a Power 5 conference, especially the SEC or Big Ten, maybe not any of them. I don't want to name the schools, but maybe I can exclude some. Pretty much every school is going to have whatever he wants.
If he likes big women, George will provide that too.
Winter coats, big women, small women, corn, any other food product. These places will provide that for Dylan Raiola. It will not be because he likes, according to this poster, quote, farm-fed women is his preference. This is all hilarious.
Chad, Brienne of Tarth in the book for Game of Thrones that hasn't finished, but whatever, it's complete according to where we stand on this.
The books haven't come out yet.
The real ending has whatever.
I do like your stance on the moment you signed over the rights to HBO and more people started watching the show than reading the books.
And then you couldn't finish the book.
That's the ending now. Like, you don't get to author the ending. You sign that right over to HBO. They ended it. The book doesn't matter anymore once you signed it over.
It's like the painter who he painted the portrait of George Washington, the final portrait. He never finished it because he thought it was too perfect. So it's not complete.
That's the way I feel about most of our shows.
It's not going to be finished. So the portrait of George Washington that you see is not his favorite one. That's not on the guy or
the painter?
who it's not his favorite portrait. He never finished his favorite on purpose.
You're saying it's unfinished, the one that we see.
No. That's not. It was not one of his favorites.
Okay.
The one that depicts him the most accurately is not the one that we see on the dollar.
But the one on the dollar is the one, is what you're saying. Much like the television version is the one.
I'm saying it's the one that they use, but it's not the unfinished one because it's not his favorite. His favorite he never finished.
If George R.R. Martin was concerned about the artistic integrity of his work of fiction, then you finish out the series of books that he had written, then you option it to HBO, and then they can film that, and you can be a part of the creative process of taking that to television and to the screen, right?
Yes.
But when you leave it unfinished and you have HBO write their own ending, I'm with Hutton on this. This is a show stance. That is now the ending of the story because you option it over. If you've got a complete body of work, an anthology of books that you option to HBO or any other company, and they want to put it on screen, that is your work. And that you can be a part of the process of making sure they're putting your work on screen. But when you option it over before it's done and they finish it, it's done. You're out of the race.
I need to find out how tall Dylan Raiola is because Brienne of Tarth is 6'6".
Well, people are in the chat are saying, I'm saying Scandinavian women like it's a bad thing. I am not. I'm just saying
tough.
To the person on there, they're not. I don't see a ton of fat people when I go to Nebraska. It's a bunch of farmers.
Yeah.
I don't think they have a big weight issue in Nebraska. There are other states that have that. I'm saying a lot of their men and women are tall. They're just bigger people. There's a lot of people 6'4" plus in the state of Nebraska, and it's because of their.
It's like going to Dorn.
It's because they're Viking lineage. It is the Dorn of the Midwest, as Hutton just said.
Brienne of Tarth is 6'6".
It's a lot of Vikings.
Dylan Raiola is 6'3".
She's 6'6".
Yeah. That's what Google says.
That's not the character, I bet, is supposed to be 6'6". I don't know that the actress.
Book, yeah, the actress is 6'3".
Wow.
The actress is as tall as Dylan Raiola. Tyrion Lannister is 4'5".
The character or Peter Dinklage?
Yes.
Okay. There's the giant, or who's not the giant? The
mountain?
The mountain. Like, I want to know what his character is supposed to height and weight versus the actual actor who played the mountain, height and weight.
So he's 6'9". Bjornsson, who played last name Bjornsson, who played him in the
another
book,
Viking, Scandinavian.
I don't see anything from the book here that tells me anything of importance here. How tall he was in the book. There you go, Chad. 6'9".
I'm fascinated by this.
Oh, described in the book as over 7 feet tall. So he's the big show.
I mean, I'm now taking it to the next level with AI and algorithms taking over everything. Is there a way to target the high school football player that does like bigger women through knowing their search history so that the Nebraskas and the Wisconsins of the world can dominate college football again? Once you find that, I'm just going with the message board posters logic on this. If they could really zero in on those high school football stars that are into quote unquote farm-fed bigger women.
So do you think Kiffin had the hostesses both big and small?
I think you got to have a variety. Absolutely.
But I think at that age you just have, I'm here and I can't believe this is what college life is like.
I'm of the belief that
the director of first impressions is normally not a variety.
And I think that there's being attractive can be objective and not subjective.
Sure.
With some. So I think most of the time
for sure.
You're going for the objectively good looking when you're doing that.
Yep.
But I do think it would be wise to have
people
of all types.
I know.
Everybody's got their thing. If this Georgia message board poster is correct, then maybe Dylan Raiola was lured by some farm-fed, taller women.
Chad, we like giving both sides here. Here's Dylan Raiola and Brienne of Tarth standing side by side.
That's actual height and weight next to each other, too.
And we like giving. We also we see an example of a post from a year ago about a guy on a message board who has a friend that was asked by Connor Stallions to possibly go scout Tennessee's signs at a Vanderbilt game.
No, there's some truth to some message board posts.
Maybe this is it.
There could be some truth to it. Keep in mind also, Raiola's dad played at Nebraska. I think that may have something to do with it also. I'm just going to go out on a limb. I'm going to go away from the message board poster that's trying to get people to cancel flights and the one who thinks that Dylan Raiola is secretly into Brienne of Tarth and say that maybe, just maybe, the appeal at Nebraska is that his dad played there and that they're going to pay him a ton of money. That could be it.
Craziness. I'm sure there are other posts too. So I'll go on a limb and say that ESPN's pretty happy with the college football playoff matchups. Reese Davis saying that ultimately they don't have the power that everyone thinks they do on the selection committee. However, he does say, and he's right, and it's obvious that, if you mean by power that we make phone calls and dictate to somebody or have such influence over grown, successful human beings that they're going to align themselves with whatever we want, then no, I don't think we have that power. But he does say, like, hey, if you want to define power, if we say something on game day, something on there, does it give the power breakers or decision makers something to think about and go, I would say the answer is yes, there's power. But that's really the show you're watching. That and you've got the Big Noon Kickoff. That's it. So if you've got the former players and the former coaches on game day and Big Noon pushing one thing, no different, by the way, I would say, than Jaden Daniels getting the push on the weekend he didn't play.
I agree.
By the media. That plays an effect and on the perception of certain programs and teams and players.
Yeah, whether passive or not. And I think what Reese Davis is saying is perfectly fair.
Yeah.
He's saying it's not like we have their phone numbers and we're sending them a text to say, put this team in over that one. We don't have that power.
Yeah, right.
We're not saying we demand this happen because of television and these are the games we want. But yeah, if we give our opinion or say something consistently on the show, which by the way, the ratings, I think 2.2 million people on average watch that show. That's good for the third highest slot of games. If you're looking at a TV window for college football, that would be the third highest game slot of the year was College Game Day's show.
Yeah.
Of course they have pull.
Yep.
And if someone agrees with someone's opinion because it's well made, well articulated by the host, then yeah, you're going to have some sway over the committee. And Reese Davis isn't backing down from that part of it.
Well, also consider
they do have power in that respect.
I mean, the rankings were a lot different for the teams 5 through 10 in many cases. But by and large, it was a chalk year, except for the final show.
Yep.
Made for TV. So is this college football playoff.
Just like Game of Thrones and Brienne of Tarth. Made for TV, not the books, George R.R. Martin, not the books.